Welcome to another photo editing live stream. Welcome, Aman Noor. We are gonna edit some more photos, just like we did the last 2 weeks. And I actually posted a whole bunch of photos on my Instagram in the last week, I would say. And I'm really happy with how these photos are turning out at the moment. So we're gonna do some more edits, pretty similar to the one that you're actually seeing right now. And this is an abandoned steel factory somewhere in Belgium that I visited, and we're going to be doing something similar to this. I've been working on my edit style, as you can see. I can, let's see, I can show you some of the other shots that I did in the last week. You can really see the edit style that I've been working on. A really dark, but still orange. I tried to leave one color in, pretty much. But I'm not taking out all the colors. I'm just really desaturating them. And it's giving it a really nice look. This one I did with a different color, because there's a completely different color that is really... well, there was really a lot of it in the image. There was a lot of green in this image, so I thought, let's do it with green. So yeah, that's kind of like the shots I've been working on. And I want to do some more today. So... if you want to see more of these shots, and when I have them done, if you want to see them, you can follow me at Instagram, which is on Instagram, I should say, probably. My Instagram is @SinisterSuspect. The link is in the description. If you are on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, just search Sinister Suspect and you will find my photography project. I also do drum and bass music, so this is different than what I normally do on this channel. But in the last few streams that we did in this about photo editing, a lot of people actually liked what I did. So I thought, let's just do it again. So can you show the original of those shots? Yeah, sure, I can. Let me go, and I need to go into the HDR folder here. That's where the actual combined exposures are. Let's see. So we have this one. That shot, and this is the before. Oh, wait. Sorry. Not sure why that didn't happen. Probably because we are not in the develop module. Let's see. That shot. And the before is that. See? So I'm really looking at the image. So I look at this image and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of green in here. And that will probably be the main color that I want to pretty much leave pretty strong to get this effect. And then I'm going to look at what other colors are there in this image. Now there's one other color that I can pretty clearly see, and that's yellow. Now yellow is a color that's pretty close to green. And therefore I'm like, okay, it would be nice if I turn this yellow into green as well. So that we get a really, and make this green a slightly different color green. So that they kind of like, I bring these two colors together so they become the same color. And that will make the image a lot more... I would say minimalistic in some kind of way, in terms of the colors at least. It'll basically bring those colors closer together, and then I'm gonna look at all the other colors, and I'm like, okay, there's very little blue in here, but there is a little blue. There's also a little bit of red in here, and let's just decrease those, you know, so that I'm gonna decrease those colors, because I don't think they're that important in this image, and that actually gives that final vibe. So that's pretty cool. I can show you the other ones. Let's see. This one, for instance. This is again the same thing, except here, when you look at the first image, at the before image, you can see that there's actually a lot of orange in here. You can see the orange right here, and there's a lot of rust and other things. These are kind of like red orange, I would say. But there's a lot of rust here, and on this thing as well, there's quite a bit of rust. And when I started changing the exposure and the highlights and shadows and stuff like that, and especially the contrast, you would really see the rust on this, well, whatever that is. It's actually part of a blast furnace. But if you could see the rust becoming really I don't know, really defined, I guess, really textured. And then I just decided to bring all these colors, the more warmer colors in here, to an orange color, and decreased all the other colors to get that. And that's pretty much what I'm doing for all of these shots. Same thing here. Here I did a little bit more. And we just went... Okay. So, here I did a little bit more. As you can see. Here I really darkened these areas right here at the left and right here. And I also added the same orange color there. Just a little bit of it. Just to give it a bit more orange. Because in this photo, there wasn't really that much color in this photo to begin with. Like, if I bring the saturation down on this image, or if I bring the temperature up, pretty much all of it is in a warm color. So there wasn't really a way to do it in this image. So what I did is I pretty much brought the temperature down a little bit more, so that it was still a little bit of warmer colors here, and then a lot of cooler blue tones in the shadow areas. And then I actually was able to achieve the same effect. So just still have a bit of orange, and then I just decided to add a bit more orange there and a bit more orange there. Isn't really that much, but it just made the image a little bit better. I think I can actually, yeah, you can see the adjustments here. So if I turn these off, there are actually going to be a lot of changes, because it's not just those areas where I've added a bit of orange, but you can see what that does. So I actually do my vignetting with the Radial Filter as well, because I get a little bit more control about my vignette. I don't have to put the vignette dead in the center of the frame. I can change the shape of it very easily. I find that just a little bit easier. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I've done here. It's not really that... Well, there's quite a big edit here, but it isn't really that complicated. It's a lot of the same stuff, actually. It's just paying close attention to certain parts. And this image wasn't even a good image. Like, if I look at this first image, you know, I don't really like this image, to be honest, if I'm looking at it right now. And I really, for a long time, didn't even edit this photo because of the lens flare right here. You know, I didn't really like how that looked. And the stuff here around the highlights, it just looks awful to me. You know, and it isn't really sharp here in the corners. There's a blue lens flare here, which is easy to remove. But, you know, stuff like that just made me not want to edit this photo. But then I started editing it, and it actually turned out very nice. So, I think we're just gonna get into it. Let's just edit some more photos. So, I'm not sure which one though. Let's see. I think I'll do one more of displays actually, because I want to post one more of displays on my Instagram. Let's see. We've got a whole bunch of them actually. This is one of the same things. This is the same place, but this is outside. So you can see that's the blast furnace, the thing here on the right. And the other photos that I just showed you were shot at the bottom of that and inside of that tower. So I pretty much climbed up all the way to the top, and it actually goes up even higher. You can see it a little bit better here. So I actually climbed up all the way to the top there, which is very high. It's one of the highest blast furnaces in Europe. There are a few other ones that are about the same height, but it's a pretty gnarly climb, especially on the day that we were here. You cannot really see it right now, but after we started climbing up, when we were at the top, it started raining, and that wasn't really fun because you have to climb up all these dodgy staircases, and you can see how rusty everything looks. And I'm gonna say that right here the floor actually still looks pretty stable, considering some of the other things that I had to cross to get all the way to the top. But yeah, it was pretty. It's a fun place. Hey Chillax, welcome. So yeah, which shot should we do? I kind of like this one. I wonder which color we could take out of this, and why is that happening? Somehow something. I'm just gonna close that folder down. Yeah, we could. I just wish I had the top of this thing right here, but it's not a bad shot. It's a pretty cool shot with the lines here and all these pipes and all those things. There's a lot of detail in this shot. Same for this one. I do have the top here. I just wished I had a little bit more sky over here, but, you know, it's fine. It's a pretty crazy place. The place is huge, by the way. So that's at the bottom of the tower. And the tower, this is actually the base of the tower. That's the blast furnace. They would actually hear the molten iron would come out of the blast furnace and go into this, well, what is it? Little canal thing. That's where the molten iron would go through, I guess. And this whole tower just extends through the roof of that thing and goes outside. So that was pretty fun. I just think we're gonna do this one and see what we can take out of this one. So, first thing, always what I do is enable my lens profile corrections and remove the chromatic aberration. Now, I'm not sure if there's anything in here. It doesn't really look like we have a lot of chromatic aberration here. Maybe a tiny little bit around that edge, but it doesn't look like much. And it gets removed as soon as we press that button, so that's pretty good. Next up, what I usually do is go to transform, and I try and get the perspective right. So you can see I shot this image a little bit facing down with the camera, so the vertical lines aren't perfectly vertical. You can see it right here, lines just slightly off, this line as well, and the more you get towards the center, the more they are straight. So that means that we need to correct this vertical perspective. So there's a couple of options. You could do it manually right here. You could just start moving that image around, and that looks pretty good already. So that could be what you could do. But you can also just use one of these buttons, and usually those actually work pretty right, so pretty good. Let me choose the vertical one. And in this instance it actually didn't work. So I'm gonna press off and I'm gonna do it manually. So just bring that slider to the right. I'm just gonna look at the vertical lines in here. So that line at the right side is straight now. So now I'm gonna look, is everything else straight? The chimney looks pretty straight. I'm gonna see if I want to correct some of the horizontal perspective. Probably a little bit, just like that. And that looks pretty straight, at least straight enough. So I'm gonna click this button, check this little box, so that we don't have to deal with these white edges that we get at the top. I do want to check though. Yeah, we are simply going to lose a little bit of that, of the top of the tower, but that's not a problem. So let's just do that. So, now for this shot, I think I want to see first how does the sky look. So this is actually a merged exposure. So these were 5 photos, and I merged them together. Reason for that is that otherwise, if I would have exposed for this sky, then all this foreground stuff right here would have been completely black. It would have looked something like that, which is not really something you can use. So I shot 5 photos, and I combined those together into a new raw file, which is this file. So now I can actually bring these highlights down very far, and even though these highlights are completely overexposed in this shot, I can just bring them down and see what detail there is in the sky. Now, the sky here doesn't really look that interesting. There's a little bit of clouds in the background, but it is very faint. This is not really an interesting sky, not really something we could use, so I'm probably gonna leave this up pretty high, so that we can, well, I'm probably gonna blow that sky out. So I'm actually gonna make it white. For the shadows, we can raise that, but I think the shadows are already pretty good. Now, one thing I want to do, when you apply the profile correction, it also removes the vignetting of the lens, and I usually like that vignetting, to be quite honest, so I'm actually going to keep that in here. So I'm just going to bring that back. For the white balance, I can check if I want to change that white balance. I'm going to make it slightly warmer. And I'm already looking at what color I want to bring out of this. Now I think that it's going to be orange again, because there's a lot of rust in this shot. So I think if we use orange, it would be probably a good color to choose. There's also green, quite a bit of it as well. So maybe we want to leave green in this shot as well, but we'll see. We'll have to work on this image. The image is not completely straight yet. I'm looking at these lines right here, and they are not completely straight, so I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try and make that a little bit straighter. So and now I'm gonna rotate this a little bit. And that actually turns it a bit more straight now. Let's see. Rotate it a little bit more. I guess we'll just do that. We can always go in and fix it even better, but I think that's straight enough. So we've done the highlights now, and I can maybe bring up the shadows a little bit. Probably not as much though. Most of these shots actually turn pretty dark when I'm done editing them, so but let's just raise those shadows a little bit just to reveal a bit more detail here. Now for the contrast, for most of these photos I actually brought the contrast up to 100%, which is pretty crazy. If you look at it right now, it looks pretty unusable, but we can fix that. So whites, I'm gonna bring those down a bit, and the blacks, I'm gonna bring those up. Maybe that looks about right. Now for the clarity, I sometimes want to add a little bit of clarity, but when we add this much contrast, adding a lot of clarity can really ruin the shot. So I'm gonna go into the tone curve, and here I'm now actually gonna decrease the contrast again, which is kind of like, you know, a lot of people would say like, why would you do that? But I'm first using the contrast to really separate the highlights from the shadows. So that's what the contrast does. The contrast makes every dark part of the image darker, and every brighter part makes it brighter. So when you increase the contrast, you're actually separating those highlights and shadows. So that's what I do first, and then in the tone curve I have a setting right here that I actually saved, which is called faded curve, and you can see what that curve does. So it's just a curve like that, and I actually brought down the white point and the black point. So that creates a little bit of a washed out look, and that is pretty much what you see in the other images as well. If you look at this image, it has a little bit of that washed out look, and you can see that exact same tone curve right here. So I don't do anything to the color channels in the tone curve. Those are all just the default setting. I only use the tone curve for doing that. That's pretty much all I do with it. And this now though, however, because we've raised the contrast to 100%, which is crazy, the colors have become a little bit strange. You know, you can see a little bit of purple here, and it just doesn't look very pleasing. And this is where I would go into the HSL panel right here. So first I would start with the hue, and here we're actually gonna bring these colors closer together. So I'm thinking about using that orange color that's in this shot. So I'm gonna take the reds, and I'm gonna see, is there anything that changes? Well, yeah, you can see that the reds do change when I slide this around. So I'm actually gonna bring these a little bit more towards the orange side. Now I'm not gonna do all the way, I'm just going to bring them slightly towards orange. Now, the orange itself, I can change that as well. I could say, maybe I want to bring everything to yellow. However, I don't think that'll work for this shot because it's rust, and rust should be orange. So I could bring it maybe a little bit towards the red side, just to make the orange a little bit darker. Now, the yellow color is also quite a lot in this image actually. We've got all those handlebars down at the bottom of the frame in the bottom left, and I might want to turn those orange. So I can bring that maybe all the way to the left. Let's just do that for now. This probably also affects all the... Yeah, it does affect the growth down here a little bit. So it does affect a little bit of these plants, but not that much to be honest. So I think we can get away with that. Now for the green. Green, same thing. I'm gonna look if I want to bring the green to the yellow side, or maybe I want to bring the green a little bit towards the blue side. I think I'll do that actually. Aqua. There is a little bit of aqua in here, especially down in the bottom left corner of the frame, but it's not really doing much. Well, it is changing color a bit, but I don't think I'll even use that color. So I'm actually gonna leave that pretty much in the center. And same for blue, but I do want to check what the blue does. And as expected, a lot of times the blue will be part of the sky and usually in the shadow areas of the photo, so it does quite a bit to the image actually. But because I don't really want to change the color blue in this shot, I just want to decrease that. I'm just gonna leave that in the center as well. Now purple and magenta could be interesting because I think there's a bit of purple and magenta going on here in the pipes at the bottom, and also in this roof down here. Right there it looks like there's a bit of pink coloring going on. So generally speaking, I think there's a little bit of purple or pink in here. So let's move that around, and yeah, you can see that it does change. What do I want to do? Do I want to bring it to the purple side? No, I actually think leaving it about right here should be good. The pink color, yeah, I'm probably just going to move that all the way to the right, so we turn that into a more red color, which makes that roof look a little bit more pleasing. Now, this is where I would go into the saturation tab. And here, we're now going to focus on which color we want to use and which color we don't want to use. So, first thing, I'm going to start at the bottom actually, so I'm going to decrease the magenta. But not really a lot. I'm just going to decrease it a little bit. And that mostly affects this little roof right here. So you can see if I turn this, if I bring the magenta back, it does affect the amount of color on that roof. So I might just bring that back a little bit, not too much though. The purple, however, yeah, I really want to decrease that, because I don't really like all that purple color in the shadow areas here, so I really want to just decrease that almost all the way. The thing is though, I don't want to decrease it all the way. I just want to leave a slight amount of that color in, so that when we're done with the image, it'll still have a little bit of all the other colors, but not as much as the main color that we're going to focus on. So, blue, same thing. I'm actually gonna... You can see if I bring it up where all the blue is. So that's a really easy thing to do, is to just bring that saturation up, and you'll see where is that color actually in this shot. So I don't want to use all those blue areas, so I'm just going to bring that down. And I'm just going to look to the image, and you can already see that we're starting to get the effect just by bringing these three sliders down. These are pretty much the colors I don't want to use. And these colors, I probably want to use a bit of it. So the aqua, that's actually another color I wanted to remove. So now we're left with pretty much the colors I was thinking of. The green, the yellow, the orange, and the red. And because we've brought the red and the yellows more towards the orange side, we now actually have pretty much orange and green. And now we can decide, do I want to bring the green out? So let's see. I can decrease the green. I'm actually going to decrease that red as well. Not as much though, so I'm just going to bring that down a bit. I also brought the magenta down a bit as well, because I could see a little bit of magenta along the top of that pipe here, and I don't want to see that, so I just brought that down as well. And now we're left with pretty much orange and yellow, so I can increase the orange maybe just a little bit. And I can take the yellow, which will also affect the green. Yeah, I think leaving a little bit of green in this shot could actually work. I do like the bit of green in there. So, I think this actually looks pretty decent. Yeah. So, we could go back into the hue now and see if I want to change that yellow color back to a yellow maybe. No, I do think it looks nice when we bring it towards the orange side. Next up is the Luminance Tab. In the Luminance tab, you could actually change how light or dark a color is. So you can actually still change some stuff. Even though we've desaturated some colors, we can still affect that the brightness of that color. So reds, I can see, do I want to bring those down or up? I'm actually going to bring them down a little bit, so they're going to be a little bit darker. Orange, you can see what that does. So we can really affect this image pretty selectively actually. Orange is gonna stay at pretty much what it is. I'm actually raising it with +5. Yellow, I want to bring that yellow up a little bit. I really want to highlight those railings there as well. So bringing the yellows up a little bit will make those a tiny bit brighter. Green. Yeah, I think I'll actually decrease the green. Yeah, I'm gonna take a bit more green out actually. And I'm gonna decrease that green color. So the green is actually becoming a little bit darker now, which makes it a little bit less visible. Does look a little bit strange. It doesn't look that strange, to be honest. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Aqua. I'm gonna decrease that as well. Blue. Now this will affect the sky as well. So decreasing the blue actually makes the edges here a little bit better visible against the bright sky. So you can see the edges are really thin right here. And if I decrease the blue, those edges become a bit more visible. So we could probably achieve the same thing with the highlight slider, but I think this is a better way of doing it. What if you make the greens go a little bit yellow to make it a little better? Didn't I just already did that, or? No, wait, let's see. The green's a little bit more yellow. Yeah, see, I've already decreased the green, so it's not really doing much anymore. And I think actually bringing it a bit to the blue will add a bit, because this is a really dark area now. So I think, yeah, that looks pretty dope, I would say. We have the purple. Now the purple does affect the highlights a lot. So I'm actually going to raise the purple here, which will increase the highlight here at the top. It also increases the highlight here at the pipe at the bottom, which is pretty cool actually. You can see if I bring it down, we lose that highlight pretty much, well, almost completely. And I can just really raise that to make it a little bit brighter. Add a little bit more contrast in that area. And magenta. Decreasing the magenta increases the texture right here in this roof, and it also increases the texture right here on this rusty ass pipe. Does decrease the highlights here a bit, so maybe I want to increase the purple. Yeah, that looks nice. So just the HSL, you can see what this does. See that change? That is a really big change. And that is why I love using the HSL part so much. It's a really great thing, a really great tool to edit your photos and to really selectively bring out the colors that you want to use. And that to me is very important. Like when I shoot a photo, I do pay attention to the color a lot, and I try to get the photo as good as possible inside the camera. But you can never control all of the colors in the image in a way that you're seeing right now in your camera. There's no way to do that. At least I don't know of a way. Maybe there is a way using some kind of a special filter, but I don't think there is. So this effect is actually a look that I've achieved. I've been trying to get this look for a while, but I never really was able to achieve it. And last week I was trying some stuff, and I kind of figured it out, so I'm really happy with this look. This image is not done yet though. So next up I go into split toning. And I don't really do anything to the highlights. I'm not going to add any color to the highlights because you can see that they'll just turn the sky into a pink color or whatever other color we select. But I do want to add a little bit of color to the shadows. And the color I do is somewhere along the aqua to blue, sometimes green. I just bring that up a bit more so I can see which color we're working with. Yeah, usually I'll sit somewhere right here at a more turquoise, aqua kind of color. And then just add like 5 maybe on the saturation, maybe 6, just a little bit. Sometimes I'll bring up one of the other shots that I edited right next to it, so I can actually compare the two. Now you can also see the difference in between these two shots, so you can actually still see like what we need to do to this shot to make it more look like that shot. We really need to start working on the brightness now. So like the main exposure of the image is done. The main exposure looks nice. Now I want to focus on which part of the image I want to bring more up front and which part I think is not that important. Usually I'll try to lead you into the center of the image. That's usually what I'll do. So I'm usually going to start darkening down the edges here, probably along this side as well. Just darken that down as well, maybe a little bit at the bottom, and then I might just brighten up this center area just a little bit. That's usually what I do. But I found a little trick in Lightroom actually that is pretty cool. If you want to do a vignette, right? So yeah, well, let's just work through these tabs, and then I'm going to show you what I mean with the little trick that I found out last week. First up is the Detail tab. Usually I'll leave the sharpening amount at the default, because I usually apply more additional sharpening with a third-party piece of software called Nik Software Sharpener. It's Nik Software's RAW Pre-Sharpener Pro, which is great for sharpening your final RAW edit. So this is a RAW file. If I'm done editing this file, I'll send it off to the RAW Pre-Sharpener, which will add a lot of sharpening to that file. Like it adds a lot of sharpening, and you can get away with adding quite a bit of it without getting really weird looking edges. It doesn't work every single time, but it is one of the better sharpening tools that I have found. A cleaner way to do it would probably be to sharpen in Photoshop, but that just requires you to jump into another piece of software, which I don't really like. I like that my workflow stays as much within Lightroom as possible, and the sharpener from Nik Software actually loads in Lightroom as a plugin. Now, it has been discontinued though, so the software has been discontinued, but it has been bought by DxO Optics, and they're actually working on a new version of it. And I think they actually also made the previous version that was well, developed by Nik Software and bought up by Google. They made that available on their website for all the people that still want to use it right now. You know, they're still working on the new version, so until that one is released, you can actually download the older version from their website now, which I think is pretty cool. And it's a really great tool for sharpening your photos. I think it works much better than the Lightroom sharpening, but I still want to apply a little bit of the sharpening. The only thing I'll do is I'll hold the Alt key on my keyboard, and I'll take this masking slider, and I'll just slide it to the right. And everything that's black will not be sharpened. So everything that's white, and you can see that's pretty much the edges. And the more I slide to the right, the less of that we're going to get. So I'm just going to look at something I probably want to see about something like this. This is a pretty detailed image, so I want to see quite a lot of white in this shot. I don't want to see something like that, or something like that. That's way too much sharpening. I just want to sharpen the edges. And something along here looks pretty right. So I'm going to just let it go, and now it has applied that sharpening only to those edges, which is much better than just applying the sharpening to the entire image. If there's anything you want to ask about what I'm talking about right now or what I'm doing, let me know in the chat and I'll read it and try and answer your questions. So that's what I try to do during these streams. If you have any questions, just let me know. If you also want to be part of a Discord community, it's a music production Discord community where I, as a producer, talk to a lot of other producers, and you know, we just have a chat about music production, share music and stuff like that. But we also have a photography section in there, and I actually set up a specific photography user role in the Discord server. So if you want to be part of that, you can join. The invite link is below the stream. Now, I think we've done pretty much everything right now. The only two tabs that we haven't touched yet are effects. Now, effects is usually where you'll add your vignette, which is nice, but I want to keep a little bit more control over my vignette, so I don't do my vignette right here. The only thing that I really like about this vignette, and that's why I used it a lot in the past, is that it has this highlight priority mode. So let's say when we add a lot of the vignettes, so let's just do that. That's way too much, but let's just do that. And you can see it also darkens the sky, and you might not want that. And the great thing about this is if you set the vignette to highlight priority mode, you can take this highlight slider and you can bring that back. So you can actually, you know, you can get rid of that effect on the lighter colors, but you can still see it still darkens it a little bit. It doesn't, you know, bringing the slider up all the way does not reduce the effect to, well, to nothing. It still applies a little bit of darkening here, so it's not perfect. Now, that's pretty much why I use the vignette in there a lot of times. But I found a way how you can mimic that same thing a lot more perfectly, actually, using the Radial Filter. So before we're doing that, we can go into the last tab, which we haven't touched yet, which is the camera calibration. So here we can actually look at this image now, and I can say maybe I want to bring the orange a little bit to the right here, which is going to make the orange a little bit brighter. So we're actually increasing the orange now. I'm going to look at the greens. So if I change this, you can see it does actually quite a bit to the image. I'm actually going to bring this to the right. Now that should, it should turn the greens into a more aqua color, but we don't really have much greens. And this also affects the other colors though. So when I bring this to the right, you can see by default, we've decreased the colors quite a bit here, and this roof was a little bit more purple than orange. So because we've decreased the color here, it now actually looks like we have a little bit of a gray roof right there. So I might, and same for these pipes. And when I bring this to the right, we're actually bringing some more orange color in those elements right there. So it's actually adding even more orange in certain areas, which is pretty cool. And same thing goes for the bottom slider. It should affect the blue colors, which it kind of does. It brings back some blue right here in the shadows. So I don't think I'll touch this a lot. No, I'm actually going to leave that. I could bring it to the left though. And when I then decrease the saturation, no, I'll just leave this in the center. That's pretty good. So now for the radial filter. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and look at the image, and I'm gonna try and get a global vignette going, something that darkens the edges a little bit. So I usually start with adding a point right here in the middle, and I'm holding shift so that I actually get a perfect circle. When I have something like that, I can look at it and say, like, I want to put this in the center. And now what I can do is invert the mask right here. So now the edges become darker and not the center. And I can play around with the feather just to, you know, sometimes I'll have the feather up 100%, but I most of the time bring it back a little bit. so that I don't have that big of a gradient between the that big of a transition between the darkest part and the center. The chat is pretty quiet, guys. Are you actually watching? Or oh yeah, we have 14 viewers. So I can darken that a bit more just to make the effect a bit more pronounced, so that you can see what this trick does. Now, do you sell these as stock? Currently not. I'm actually looking into ways to actually start selling these as prints. I've got so many photos, and I've been sitting on these for way too long, and it's finally time to start editing them. And I mean, I don't really have that much time anymore to do exploring like I used to do. I still explore, but mostly in my own hometown. Before I just traveled pretty much through Europe for these kind of shots. And whenever I go somewhere to a different country, I'll still try and find something I can do along these lines. But I don't really do it that much anymore. I'm exploring more inside my own city, looking up rooftops, stuff like that. And you gotta make the best of what you have, and right now that's pretty much what the situation I'm in. So now you've got the edges darkened, and you can see that we get the same thing as we have with the vignette in the effects section. We also darken the sky. Now here comes the trick. All the way at the bottom of the radial filter, and this might not be in your version of Lightroom if you don't have one of the latest upgrades. I think this was added a few updates ago. I think maybe the February update, or what was it, the December update of last year. They added this new thing called the range mask. So when you click this, you get a drop down box. You can choose color or luminance. Color is nice if you have like a blue sky and you want to affect only the blue sky with the radial filter. So you'll place the radial filter across your entire image, but you want so that you can darken the sky in kind of like an arch shape, but you don't want to darken everything in the foreground. You can set it to color, and then you can select the color of the sky, and then it will apply it only to the sky, which is pretty awesome. And here we're actually going to do the same thing, but we're going to focus on the luminance, because we don't have that much color in the sky, and I only want to do it, and here it's a better option to use the luminance instead, which is the brightness of the certain area that we're going to use. So I'm going to click on luminance, and now we get a few sliders. So I'm going to take the right part of this slider called range, and I'm going to slide this to the left, and look at what that does. It actually removes the radial filter effect from the brighter parts of the photo. So not just from the highlights in the sky, but it actually also removes it here from the brighter parts, which is pretty cool. So we can bring those back, and if I go all the way, you can see it really... You can have it affect just the shadows. Like right now, I'm only darkening those shadow areas, which is pretty powerful if you can use a radial filter like that, because you can apply this to a lot of different things. So I'm just looking at it, and let's just say I want to decrease to about 70 or 75. That seems to take care of the sky. And I'm going to bring this back. So I'm just going to darken those edges a little bit. That looks about right. Which camera do you have? The shots that you're looking at right now, those were shot on a Canon 550D. So that's, if you're in the US, that one is, I think, called the Canon Rebel T2i, I think. It's a Canon EOS 550D. It's a crop sensor camera. It's the camera I shot on for years, actually. Recently, I've switched to a full frame camera though. I'm now shooting on a Canon 6D. So I've upgraded. I'm shooting on a Sigma Art lens as well now. So I've upgraded my lenses, and I really I'm gonna upgrade my lens as soon as well. I'm actually gonna buy another Sigma Art lens. I really love the quality of that lens. And compare, but you know, looking at these shots, I mean, this was shot on the Sigma 8 to 16mm at 8mm. So this is actually a really wide angle. And for a crop sensor, it's still pretty sharp. It's a good lens. I mean, this was probably stopped down. Yeah, this was stopped down to f9. So we get a pretty good amount of sharpness from front to back. you can see that this is pretty sharp, and everything in the background still looks pretty sharp as well. So I mean, that's pretty good. Probably in the corners it's gonna be a little bit worse, but that's usually gonna be, those are usually the areas that I'll darken a lot as well, so it's not really a problem. Yeah, you can see it's a little bit of unsharp here in the corners of the image, but considering it's a really wide angle, 8mm, I don't really think that's a bad thing. Well, it is. It should be better if it's actually fully sharp right there as well, but for such a wide angle, you know, you're gonna get a little bit of unsharp corners probably. But I'm upgrading to, I've upgraded to the 6D with the Sigma 24-35 f2 art, which is the lens that I mostly use these days. I'm also buying a Sigma 24-105 art, which is an f4 lens, if I remember correctly. I think no, that's an f4 lens. I need that one pretty soon. I'm gonna be, in June, the first week of June, I'm gonna be standing on top of a lot of rooftops in the city I live in, which is Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And I'm actually going to be standing on the roof of a lot of the higher buildings in my city. So I'm going to be shooting a lot of photos from there, so I need a lens with a little bit more zoom. I also have a 70-200, but the 24-105 would be a little bit easier to use probably. So that's going to be a lens that I'm going to buy. And I also still want to buy the Sigma 14-24 f2.8. That is going to be the lens that will replace my old Sigma 8-16. The 14-24 is also an art lens, and it looks like it's a much better wide-angle lens than the 8-16. And I already love the 8-16. I mean, you can look at this shot, and I really like the amount of detail that I get in these shots from that lens. So my bet is that the other one, the 14-24, which is a full frame lens, is going to be much better. So the 8-16, the one that I shot this shot with, is a lens that's actually designed for crop sensor cameras, so it doesn't really work on the 6D. Well, it does work. You can put it on the 6D and it'll work. You can shoot your photos, but you will have black borders around the shot, which is pretty much the lens hood that you'll see in the frame. So it's not really usable on a 6D. I can use it on the 6D, but then I'll still have to crop the image to a crop sensor resolution to get rid of these lens hoods that are in the frame. So I don't really use that lens anymore. I still have a cheap Samyang 14mm, which is a full frame lens, so I still have a full frame wide angle, but it doesn't have any zoom range, and it's a full manual lens, so the camera doesn't understand what the aperture on the lens is, so the metering on the camera can be completely off, which is a little bit of a pain to shoot with. You get used to it though, but it's still a pain to work with. So I do want to upgrade to the 14-24, but that lens is pretty expensive, so I'll have to wait with that, and I'm gonna get the 24-105 first, because I'm gonna need that one pretty soon, because I don't really have anything within that focal range right now. I do have something within the ultra wide angle focal range, the Samyang 14mm, but which is a pretty good lens. I mean, it's a cheap lens, but it's a pretty good one. Not sure if you said this already. This is the first time I see your photo editing live streams. Do you take the pictures yourself, or do you get them from a friend or online? No, I actually take these photos myself. I've been exploring for the last, I would say, 4 years. I've been doing it for much longer, but I never really took a camera with me. I did a lot before I actually bought my first camera. As a kid, I actually also already used to hang out in, there was an abandoned machine factory inside my neighborhood when I was a kid. The place is demolished now, but we would hang out there, and they were actually closing down, so there were still people there every now and then, but as soon as they were, as soon as the workday was over and they would go home, we would just go on their terrain and just play on all these big rusty pipes that would lie out in front of the factory and stuff. And then at one point the factory completely closed down, and somebody made a hole in the side of the factory wall. Like, they literally just smashed a hole through the brick wall. I mean, it wasn't me or one of my friends, but I'm not sure who it was. Probably one of the older guys in our neighborhood. And you know, they started going in, doing graffiti and stuff like that. And I was still very young. I'm talking about like 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10. And this place was really like very close to my house, and at one point we found that hole in the side of the building, and we would just go in, and that was pretty much my first encounter with a place like that. And from there on, every time there would be like an abandoned house or something like that, you know, we would always hang out in places like that. We would just go there in the weekend, take all kinds of booze with us, just because you're a lot safer there from the police. You know, when you want to hang out with your friends in the weekend, drink some booze and just hang out and have a good time, you can't really do that openly on the streets right here in the Netherlands, because you'll get a fine for that from the police. And if you're under 16, you're actually probably gonna have an even bigger problem, because they'll go to your parents and stuff like that. So when we were that age, yeah, we preferred to hang out in places like that. And I guess that's where the whole fascination for these places came from. And now, as a music producer, I still get a lot of inspiration from going to these places and just from exploring in general. It's a great break from making music and then just, you know, every once in a while just go out and explore whatever it is, if it's an abandoned place, or just go to the city and try and find some rooftops or other places that most people don't go to. Just find interesting things, you know. And yeah, that is how it all started. And before you know it, you've been traveling Europe for, I don't know, 3 years. I would go like to Belgium or France or Germany about every month, sometimes 2 times a month. And we would go usually for like 1 day, or sometimes we would even go 2 days and just sleep in a car. We've even slept on inside abandoned locations, just because it's convenient, you know. You're there already and you're inside. There's rooms everywhere. You can just pick a room and you wake up with a beautiful view from the top of a building or something like that, you know. So we've actually slept in places like this as well. And yeah, I shoot all these photos myself, so this is all original work. So now I'm looking at the image. I'm thinking, like, what do I want to do with it more? The edges are darkened, and I do like what that does, so I'm going to I'm gonna go and brighten up the center here. So let's increase the exposure, and let's just do something like that. I'm gonna decrease the exposure though. I don't want to bring it up that much, just a little bit. Might want to bring the highlights down so that we can make that a little bit less harsh behind those pipes. And then I can check, maybe I want to increase the contrast or take the clarity. Now the clarity will make it look very harsh, so I don't want to do too much of that. That looks about right. We can take this and let's say about half a stop on the exposure. And now we can just go in here and just say, maybe I want to have some more light in certain areas. So I'm looking at it and I think I want to add a little bit of light here. Just a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of light here. Now I'm going to try out right now to use the color. So when I want to try if I can apply this pretty much only to this rusty pipe. Now this is pretty much the same color, so I think it'll also affect that, but we can try it. So now I'm using the range mask color, and you get this eyedropper tool here, so I can click that and I can just hover over here and just click somewhere on the rusty pipe, and that actually did a pretty good job. And I can even add colors to it, so I can click a few times just to get a few different samples, and now it'll affect pretty much that part of the image. So let's see what happens. Yeah, you can see if I raise the exposure now, it pretty much only affects that, and it affects this bottom pipe a little bit. But I just want to increase the exposure a little bit on there, just to give it a little bit of an accent, just a bit of a highlight. I'm gonna go in with the adjustment brush now, I'm gonna take the clarity up to about 50, and my brush is set up all the way, so we have a full, where we click, we're just gonna get 50, well, plus 50 on the clarity. I don't want to do too much of that right here, because if I do the clarity on the areas where there's a lot of highlights, it'll make that look very harsh. Where I do want to add a bit of clarity is maybe along the side of this right here. Just a bit on that pipe. Now we're also getting a lot on the roof right here. So I'm gonna go in and hold Alt, which will bring up my, actually, I'm gonna undo my brush stroke. Let's just remove it actually. I'm gonna set the, I'm gonna use the Auto Mask feature here. So that'll hopefully add it only to the pipe itself. So let's see if that works. Oh, that actually did a pretty nice effect. So let's decrease the size of this a bit, and let's just try and just add a bit more clarity along the side of that. And oops, I still went a little bit too far. So I'll bring the Auto Mask to, let's turn it on the eraser. I can just go along the side again. Just remove that. I might want to do a bit of clarity here. Just a bit. Not much though. Maybe a bit. No, see on the top right there, it'll just make it way too bright. So I'm not going to do that. Maybe a bit here on that pipe. I want to bring that highlight out a bit more. So that looks good. Yeah, maybe a bit on there. Maybe a bit on this staircase right here. Just to highlight that a bit. No, that doesn't look too good. I'm just gonna leave that alone. Yeah, that looks nice. Maybe a little bit on these railings here. You see, that will really bring those railings out a bit. And now I can take the slider and just play around with how much of it I want. So I brought it up to 50 first, which is quite heavy, so that you can clearly see where you're painting. Maybe I want to add a little bit right here at the top as well in this tower. Yeah, that actually brings some more detail back in there. I'm just gonna do a bit here, a little bit on that side wall, and now I can bring it back to, let's say, about 30-ish. And you can see how much of a change that actually makes. So it is really adding some local contrast, some micro contrast, or whatever you want to call it, to just a few certain areas. So I think we're almost done with this image now. So that's what the image looks like. Usually what I'm gonna do right now when I'm done editing the image pretty much all the way, I'll just go back into the basic tab and I'll just play around with the highlight slider a little bit. See, I think I'm gonna bring a little bit of that sky back so that we're just gonna have a little bit of cloud detail in the sky. That'll also decrease the highlights here a bit and make the other highlight areas here a little bit less harsh, which I think is good. Shadows, see, I can now play around with those, see if I want to increase them or decrease them. I think I'm actually gonna I'll put them around plus 17. I don't really want to have too bright shadow areas. Now for the whites, I can go in there and I can see if I want to change some more to the whites. That looks fine. You can see a little bit, we've got a little bit of movement going on here in the top of the frame. That's a little bit weird. Looks a little bit weird right there. But when you're looking at the full shot, and this is going to be posted to Instagram, so you don't really have to worry about something like that. Nobody's going to see that. It's all the way in the corner. See? There's a little bit of stuff going on along the edges, but that's not really a problem if we're going to post this on Instagram, where the final image is going to be way smaller, you know, than it is on the computer. So, I haven't even added any clarity here. I'm just going to boost that to +8 just a little bit. That'll bring some more detail out here. Blacks, I can actually see if I want to decrease these a little bit. And now when I bring back my reference image, so now we can look at the two images side by side. And you can really compare them. And you can say like, okay, so does it look similar? Actually it does quite a lot. In terms of color, these two shots look pretty similar. The only main difference is that we have a much bigger, brighter part in this shot because it was shot outside. But that's just something, you know, that difference is always going to be there. I'm not going to darken that sky so much that we're going to get a similar shot as this, where we have almost a circular vignette here. I'm not going to do that here because I want to leave that sky pretty much alone. I like what that sky looks like right now. But in terms of color, both shots look very similar. And that's what I want to do. When I edit multiple photos of the same location, I always try and make the edit as similar as possible in terms of color, in terms of contrast, in terms of detail, because these photos will, in the end, they will also end up on the website that I'm working on. So then they'll actually be all on the same page, and therefore these images need to have a similar look to them when they end up on this website that I'm working on right now, and I'm trying to release that website pretty soon. But as you might understand, I want to have those images looking pretty similar so that they look like a series of shots instead of single shots. They could work very well as single shots on Instagram or Facebook or any of these other social media sites, but on my website I want them to look like a series. So the fact that the colors look the same is very important, and therefore I really love this reference photo feature. You can bring that up right here, just reference view, and you can just bring in one photo. Like I could bring in that one, which is an unedited one, or I can just bring in one of this. I can bring in this other one that I edited, and you can see that they look very similar again in terms of color. Usually I'll do this to judge how much blue there is in the shadows, because I'm adding a bit blue in the shadow areas, and that looks pretty similar. If I compare this area to what I'm seeing right here in this corner, that looks pretty similar. So that's what you want to do when you edit a series of photos. You really want to pay attention to that. So let's see this other one. See, again, looks pretty similar. This one is a little bit less dark in the bottom corners, but that's fine. And the only different one will be the one with the green. But even if we compare this one and we compare this shadow area down here in the bottom right corner, and we compare it to this area, you can still see that the amount of blue in the shadows is still the same. It's still similar. So the overall look, the overall edit of this image is still very similar. The contrast looks almost the same as in the one that I just edited. And the only difference here is that I've took that green color up front, because that's the most dominant color in the photo, whereas the other ones have a much more orange color. So they will still work in a series of photos. This picture looks so techno. Yeah, I guess it does. It does have a nice techno look to it. I really love shots like this. It's I don't know, it's a really great thing to shoot. So, we're gonna do another shot. I'm gonna grab myself a drink. We're gonna do another shot. Do you guys want to see another shot of the same place, or do you want to see a shot of a different place? We could do any of the two. I've got a lot of shots, so I've got a lot actually. Quite a bunch of the same place actually, which look completely different. But we could edit one of those, or we could go into one of the other photos. And while we're doing that, it would be great if any of you could share this stream on social media, so that we could get some more viewers in here. And I'm actually gonna share the stream as well. So that we might get some more viewers back in here. So yeah, let me know. Let me know what you want me to do. So we could try one more thing on this photo. Let's take the color here. I'm just gonna take a bit of an orange color. I'm just gonna add a little bit of a radial filter somewhere around here. Let's see what it does. So we could add a bit more orange there, but it looks a little bit unnatural. Just a bit. Just get some more orange in that roof. Yeah, I think that's nice. So yeah. We've got a lot of photos of the same place actually. Let's look up a different location. So, what do we have here? This is an abandoned monastery. Looks a little bit dark right now, but I can make it a bit brighter. This is an abandoned monastery, so this is actually more of a religious place. As you can see. We've got a statue of Jesus right here. Which is a little bit broken up. Poor Jesus. I'm not sure what they did to you, but you lost your nose, you've hurt your chin, and what did they do to your arms? But, you know, you can see that's it was a pretty interesting place to explore as well. It wasn't as big as the other one. It wasn't as big as the steel factory. But it was still a pretty interesting place. Now, a lot of these shots are very dark. This one is even moved. Cannot really use that one. And I think that's way too dark, so we'll not be able to use this one. Oh, but I shot it again. Wow, a lot of these shots are moved actually. These shots are are a lot older as well. I did these back in, what was it? February 2000 and no, not February. June or May 2015. So these are a little bit older. Yeah, that looks like a nice one. Let's try out this shot. So I'm gonna merge these photos into an HDR photo, so that we can control these highlights. That's the most important thing. That's why I use HDR. We could have probably used this single exposure, but I like getting a little bit more detail from the highlight areas. See, right here everything looks perfectly exposed except for the highlights in the windows. Those look way too bright, so that's why I use HDR. And we can turn it into something like that, and here we can raise the shadows and lower the highlights, and then raise the overall exposure to get a similar thing, but we get more detail within the highlight areas. That's very important for the shots that I do. Now let me reset this. let's try out this shot. So, profile corrections, and I do want to bring my vignette back, because I like the vignette. Transform, gonna try out the vertical one. I don't think it did a good job. No, it did a really good job. I can try out full, but even that doesn't look perfect to me, so I'm just gonna hit off, and I'm gonna do it myself. So I'm mostly just looking at the windows right now. Let me rotate that a little bit. Let me take the horizontal perspective. This image is a little bit crooked to begin with. These days I put a little bit more attention into how I frame my shots, as opposed to a few years back, but we can still get this pretty straight. Doesn't have to be perfect. This looks... Let me do that. Yeah, it looks better than what it was before. Yeah, that does look better. Now for this shot, in the basic tab here, we can try out the auto white balance, but that turns it into a bit of a purple look actually. Not that big of a fan of that. I do think there's a lot of green in this shot, so I'm gonna try and make that a little bit more magenta to get a little bit more of a natural color. And for the white balance, I'm gonna decrease that a little bit, because otherwise there's a lot of, that's just pretty much all warm colors in this shot. I'm gonna decrease that a bit so that we get a little bit more cool tones in the shadows. Now for this one, I'm not sure if I want to bring the contrast up all the way, like I did on the other one, because that really darkens the image a lot. But we'll start with that as a starting point. Increase the shadows a bit, I'm going to decrease the highlights a bit, and I'm going to increase the exposure. Now I'm going to try decreasing that contrast. Yeah, I'm not going to go up all the way on the contrast on this one. About there looks right. The whites. Yeah, I want to bring the whites down quite a lot. You can see that that mostly affects the highlights. So I'm going to bring those down so that we get a little bit of that, a little bit less of that harsh edge around the windows. You can see it just makes those edges a bit darker, and I think that looks better. For the blacks, might want... Yeah, that looks nice. I'm not a big fan of this box on the left. I wished I just kicked that out of the way when I shot this photo, but I wasn't that smart back then. Increase the clarity on this shot a bit. That'll bring out some detail in the floor and in this mattress. Vibrance, I'm gonna bring the vibrance down a little bit. Let's go into the tone curve, and I'm gonna load up that preset that I made, and you can already see what that does. So that gives us the little bit of the faded look that I have been using lately. I told you guys in the stream a while ago that I was not a big fan of that faded look, but it allows you to actually add a lot more contrast, because you're then decreasing the amount of black and the amount of whites. You can get away with more contrast, and it actually gives a pretty nice effect to these kind of images. So I've actually started using it. Now for the hue, now we're gonna do the same thing again. We're gonna try and look at what colors we're gonna use. Now this image is a little bit more difficult, because we have a lot of yellow in this shot. Like, see, the yellow affects a lot in this photo. I might even want to go to the green side, because everything outside is also green. So I might want to do that and really focus on the green in this image. Or we can go to the yellow side and decrease the saturation of the green. That could also work. Now these colors, there's not really much of it anyway, so they're not really doing anything. See, those sliders don't really do much in this shot because there's not much of those colors in here. Which means that we can take the saturation of those sliders down quite a lot. So I'm thinking about which color we should be using from this shot. Yeah, maybe even just a green that's outside of the windows. That could also work. And leave a little bit of the yellow color in. It looks like we have a lens spot here on the lens though. Let me quickly remove that. And it's gone, so that just cleans up that little spot right there. Let's try playing with the luminance here. Let's see if we can first decrease the greens a bit, so we get a bit more detail in those windows. I'm going to brighten up the yellows here. See, decreasing the reds all the way doesn't even do that much, so. This affects the highlights on the floor, so I'm actually going to increase that a bit. That doesn't do much. And I bet the magenta doesn't do much either. No, the magenta doesn't really do much much either. So I think this is good enough. Split toning, a little bit of the shadow. I want to add a little bit of blue here. At about 6. I can play with this balance slider that will actually apply the blue to more or less of the shadow. So if I bring this up all the way, you can see right now all the way at the left we got a lot of blue in pretty much all the areas, and if I bring this to the right, you should see that the highlights start to lose that blue color. So you can actually you know, play around with that. Let's say about here looks about right, and then just decrease the blues again. So now we have very little blue, so I'm going to bring this back a bit, and that reveals some more of the blue color here. Just a little bit. Detail. I want to do the sharpening, so let's apply the mask here. Now you can see that last shot we were at about 70. Then we don't have that much edges, so I'm actually going to bring it back so that we get a little bit more. Around 40 looks right for this shot. Effects, I could use the vignette here, because we are not really doing, we don't really have to deal with highlights in the vignette areas right now, as opposed to the other shot where we had the sky. Here we don't, so here I could probably just use this, but I still prefer using the radial filter. Now for the calibration here, I might want to use this to try and get some more interesting colors from this shot, because I think the shot looks pretty boring. Might be me, but I think the shot is pretty boring right now. Especially compared to the other one that I just did. Yeah, I do like the green look though. Becomes very green in the windows now, so I might want to bring that down a bit. I do like the green color. I think this one is a little bit... This is going to be a little bit of a different edit, I think, with a little bit of a more greener color. I like what that does. So, now I would use the Radial Filter. So I'm going to reset this so I don't want to have any color adding to my Radial Filter. And I'm just going to make a filter in the center again. This is a pretty symmetrical shot, so I want to have my vignette in the center for the shot. Invert the mask, and then I can bring down the exposure. So I'm really going to darken the edges. That's something I always do. Bring that feather back so that we get a little bit less of it. And I'm actually going to increase it a bit as well. Now, you might notice that this, what is it, a chalkboard? It gets a little bit dark. But I'm gonna put some more focus on that in just a minute. So about one stop looks nice. I mean, it's not a bad shot. It's not the most spectacular one, but it's not a bad shot. Let's see, I might want to increase the exposure a bit right here in the center. Yeah, see, that really brings out some detail here. So I'm gonna try and do the same thing right here. So I'm gonna add some light on this mattress. And I'm gonna try increase the clarity a bit as well, but let's do that with the adjustment brush so that we can do it to the entire mattress. Just take the clarity up. I'm gonna take the auto mask off right now. I'm just gonna brush a bit here. So that'll increase the texture of this mattress, and anything that will look very dirty and very grimy, like this mattress does, it looks like it's been there for a long time. It looks pretty dirty. When you use the structure, it'll increase that texture, and that's why I love it so much. It also works on floors that are very dirty, or if you've got cracks in a wall or in the ceiling. Peeling paint is also a good example. It'll really add a lot of contrast to that. It will add a lot of structure to it, which is great. The chat is really quiet today, boys. And we don't have that much viewers, actually. Last stream did a lot better. Not that it is an issue. I mean, you guys can watch the stream back. I'm again gonna increase the exposure now, and I'm gonna add a little bit of exposure here. I want to bring a bit more of that chalkboard back in. I'm gonna add another one. See what I'm doing here? I'm really kind of like creating light. I'm just shaping the light in the photo pretty much. It's something I do a lot. Let's take smaller and smaller filters and just place them on top of each other to create kind of like a spotlight effect, which is a great tool. It's a really nice thing to do. I might want to darken up some areas now. Like, I think this top corner could be a little bit darker. Same for the one at the top right. I'm going to make this corner a bit darker as well. I'm not going to do it to this corner because this corner already looks a little bit darker than the other ones. I think the highlight on the chalkboard is a little bit too much. So I'm going to back this down a bit. Just a little bit. And increasing the clarity on this actually looks pretty cool as well, so maybe... Yeah, that looks pretty nice. So that's the before, and that's the after. Yeah, it's still a big difference. We can go into the basic tab now and change the white balance, and that'll affect what the image looks like. So you can see that we can really change what we can make that image look like. Now I do think around here looks about right. Then we can change the tint. You can see that really still affects the image quite a lot. I think the default just looks nice though. Just take out a little bit of green first, because otherwise it's going to be too green in pretty much the entire image. Yeah, I don't really think I want to do much more to this image, to be honest. I think this image is pretty much done now. So, are we gonna do another image? How late is it? It's 10 past 10 for me, so we could do another image. We could do probably a few more. This one could be pretty cool with all the dirt on the floor. That can really look nice, because that is a lot of detail that we can bring up front. I also like the checkered floor, and I like the writing on the wall. It's actually pretty cool in this shot. Similar for this one where we have the windows, but you see less of the dirt. So, and I love just these dark corridors in these places, man. That's really cool. So this is the church hall. So that's the little chapel that's inside. This is the actual building on the outside. Let's try one of these actually. We could do one of these. I have this one. I've got that one. I think this one is pretty nice because it has a little bit more of an angle. Not looking right from the front to the building. I've got a little bit more of an angle here, which I think is a little bit better. I do want to check out though how the transform will do on this one. So let's see, vertical. So this time it did a pretty good job at straightening out pretty much the entire image. And that will be the straight version of the image that we get. It's a little bit off. But just a very little bit. Right now it's straight. So, I think I want to try edit this one. I think this one looks pretty cool with the grass here. This is the building on the outside. White balance. Yeah, I'm gonna bring that a little bit down, just a bit. Highlights, let's bring that down and see what that sky looks like. So in this shot, I actually think the sky could add something to this shot. I don't think it's too bad in this one. We have a good amount of detail in the clouds. It's not the most beautiful clouds. Looks like a little bit of a rainy day, which I think was right actually. I think it was a little bit of a rainy day that day. But we do have a little bit of detail in the clouds, so that's nice. Shadows. I can raise those up a little bit. Let's take the contrast and let's take that contrast up quite a lot. Raise the blacks a little bit. And let's decrease the whites. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Black and white maybe. I'm not a big fan of black and white, to be honest. I mean, it can look very nice, but for my own photos, I'm not really a big fan of black and white. I'm really not a big fan of that. I can try though. You can see, I mean, it does look pretty nice. But considering the photos that I shoot and what my normal edits look like, I usually don't do black and white. But that said, we can always try. We can always try. So see, I never really used this, but you can actually have quite a bit of control over your black and white images. It's pretty awesome. But I have to say, I'm not a big fan of black and white on this shot. That does quite a bit though. Too bad that it actually brings up this edge along the side of the building, because that sky looks pretty dope though. But you can see right here around the trees, looks really bad actually. Maybe I should maybe I want to do the actual maybe I want to do it with the with a single exposure on this one. I am already using the single exposure. Wow. That looks really odd, so I probably don't want to do that. See, but I do like what it does to the sky, but not what it does right there to the edges. So might be able to see if this does anything. Yeah, so I can decrease these edges, but they're always going to be there, so yeah, I'm not sure. Oh wait, I should not reset these settings. I'm just going to go back to color. And let's go into the hue and saturation. Make that a little bit more red. Just a tiny bit to the orange side. So I think in this shot the green is going to be the main color. Because there's a lot of green in here. I do want to see, maybe I want to bring the greens a little bit more towards the yellow side. I think that looks pretty cool. And I'm probably going to darken the sky in this shot though, because the sky looks pretty dope. I'm not sure though if I will be able to get those edges to look right. That's going to be a little bit of a task. Now I'm going to decrease the reds though, and take some of that orange out as well. Ooh, decreasing the greens actually looks pretty cool as well. Now we should start focusing on the sky. We still have to do quite a bit here, but I want to try and make that sky darker first. So I think the radial filter will be the best way to do it. And just make a radial filter somewhere along here. And I'm looking at the curve of the sky. I'm just going to do about that, I think. And I'm going to darken this up. Invert the mask, so that'll do this. Now I'm going to bring the feather back a little bit so that I'm mostly darkening the top right now. And let's see if we can use the luminance, and let's see what happens if we raise the bottom here. So yeah, it does look a little bit weird if we use the luminance slider here. I could try color. Yeah, it doesn't really do a good job on this particular one. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave that at, on the off setting. And I'm going to use a brush with the radial filter selected. I'm going to use the brush and I'm going to click on the erase brush. Don't want to use auto mask. Maybe I'll do actually. And I'm going to brush right here. Pretty much everywhere where I don't want to see the effect. I'm just going to go along this edge of the building first, because the edge is what I don't want to be affected. And with the auto mask on, you can see that I can paint and pretty much affect only the edge. Or only the building. I'm not affecting the sky, and that's what the auto mask does. It takes care of that, so you don't have to do crazy masking or do a lot of erasing on your brush. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Just carefully move along that line. And as long as that center circle is not going like that on the sky, you will not select the sky, and you will only select the part that you want. So I can even do it on the tree here. And you can see that it does a pretty good job. Same thing here. It does bring up a little bit of the sky as well, but it's not too bad. We'll probably use a vignette as well at the end to darken the final image even more. Now I'm gonna turn the auto mask off, and I'm gonna increase my brush size. I'm just gonna brush pretty much everywhere where I don't want the effect. Make it a bit smaller. Just go through here. So now this radial filter is only affecting the sky. We still have a little bit here. Oh, see, I went too far now. I probably... yeah. Let's do it again. This time pay a little bit more attention, and let's turn auto mask so that we can finish that last section here. That looks good. So it does take a little bit of time to do this. But it does pay off, you know, if you put in a little bit more time, a little bit more work in your shots, it does pay off in the end. It makes them look a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit better, a little bit more special, I guess. As opposed to just adding a vignette and calling it a day. So, now you can see that this filter is really just affecting the sky. And now I can go in here and I can maybe do it a little bit less. Or a little bit more. We could go very far actually, as you can see. And I do see that it looks a little bit weird here. It looks a bit weird on that on the parts where the sky is visible through the trees. That's where the luminance would come in very handy. Or we could just go in here and just zoom in a bit. And take one of the brushes and just go through that a bit like that. Just to darken it a little bit. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can just brush those parts away a bit so that they're not that clearly visible. I'm gonna do the same thing here. Just, it's not really important, you know, those areas between the trees. I don't really have to see those. So that looks a little bit better now, I think. Because I do like what the sky looks like when we make it very dark. It looks a little bit like a stormy sky, to be honest. Which it kind of was on that day. It was a very rainy day when we were there. But it gets a really stormy look now, which is pretty cool. Actually, very cool. I really like that. Now for the HSL, I'm still not sure what I want to do here. I think decreasing the green could add a lot to that look. To that stormy look. And I'm actually going to decrease the blues as well. Now the image looks a little bit flat. So let's try increasing the clarity a bit. It's getting a bit better. It's becoming a bit more like what we can use. And it looks a little bit more something worthy to post on Instagram. Not too sure about the colors yet though. Let's try out a more... Actually, that looks pretty dope. It doesn't look original or realistic, but that's not the point. Now the luminance, there we should be able to affect this quite a bit. I'm just going to decrease the highlight areas just a little bit like that. I can increase the oranges a bit, which will make the building stand out a bit more. Increase the aquas a bit in terms of brightness. So, split toning. Normally I would go for a blue color, which I think looks pretty nice on this shot. I mean, it's still turning out into a pretty cool shot. Let me try and paint a little bit more dark here. Just to get rid of that edge a little bit that you see around the trees here. So I'm gonna take the flow down so I can paint with less opacity and just try and make that glow a little bit less around the trees. I think that's pretty okay. Yeah, I mean, it is what you have to do. I mean, if you look at all these really beautiful, cool shots on Instagram, on social media, you should never forget that those shots never look like that in the camera. I mean, you can get away with quite a bit, and you can actually make a shot look pretty cool inside your camera if you set the exposures right. And if you do everything right, then it looks pretty good on the camera. But especially these days with Instagram. Like, if you open up Instagram and look up city shots or look up travel photography, for instance, you can see these really vibrant shots and all these colors pop very hard. Or they have really, you know, focused on, you know, changing the colors into making it look as perfect as possible. And you will probably never be able to do that with just your camera alone. So editing is really where most of the power is in getting your shots to look right. So it's starting to look a little bit more interesting now. So if we compare the before and the after, I mean, that's a big difference. It's a really big difference, actually. So I'm gonna add a little bit of sharpening here. That looks about right. Don't want to apply any sharpening to the sky, so that's because that is pretty much you know, it's one color. There's not really anything, and if you apply sharpening to the sky, it'll actually start increasing the noise that you see here. So there's a little bit of noise in here. It's not too much. This was shot on ISO 100, and we really affected the sky a lot. So we should be seeing a bit of that. I actually see a little bit more of that stuff down there, which I might wanna fix. Which means we go in here, we go to the brush, we zoom in. Yeah, right there. I'm just gonna paint a little bit more here. I really couldn't care for all these bright spots in between the branches. I don't really mind those spots, and I don't think that they should be bright. I think they should be a little bit darker. So just do that. I mean, you can affect the image pretty selectively like this. In the other corner we don't have to deal with it, so this should be right. Yeah, that looks pretty good. You don't really see any more weird bright spots in between the branches right now. Effects, that will be your main vignette. I'm not gonna do that. I might add a vignette later, but I'm gonna go into the camera calibration, and let's just try moving these sliders around and see what that does to the actual colors of the image. I'll usually start with this one. So I'm gonna bring this slightly more to the orange side, just a little bit. I'm gonna bring this one slightly to the right as well. This will separate the green from the orange a bit more. That's actually a pretty funny look as well. We can make the sky purple. That's weird. I'll probably just leave that in the center, or just move it slightly to the left. You can see that that increases the oranges a bit as well. So let's just A/B that. Yeah, see, we're just increasing the orange on the building just ever so slightly. I think that that looks pretty good. So, do I want to do some more adjustments? I probably won't. I probably want to darken some areas. So, I'm first going to start with brightening up the center here. I want to add some more light to the building itself, especially right around here, I think. Yeah, see, that really brings out the building a bit more. I'm also going to do one right here. So that'll increase the brightness on the building itself. Now I want to focus on the edges, so I'm going to do another vignette. I'm going to make another one. And I'm going to invert the mask, and I'm going to darken those edges a bit more. Let's bring the feather down, so that we don't have 100% feather. You want to bring a little bit back. It looks about right. And on this one though, I don't really want to affect the sky, because we've already darkened the sky quite a lot. And I don't really want to affect that, so I want to try the luminance slider here. I'm just going to bring that back a little. so that we're not affecting the sky. We might still be affecting the sky a little bit, but let's see. Yeah, we're still affecting the sky just a little bit, but it's not really that much anymore. So I think that that's pretty good. Now I want to add a little bit more light here on the grass. Let's bring it up to about half a stop. And let's do one right here. So that brings some more light in here. Can make it a bit smaller. Maybe I want to darken up the corners a bit, especially the one here in the bottom left. Just take a little bit of a graduated filter here. I just drop that exposure down a bit. Just to pretty much to narrow down the image and to guide the eye of the viewer into the center of the shot. I also think that it will look good if we add a little bit of light to this wall here on the side. Let's bring that size down a bit. I think that looks nice. Maybe a bit more light here. Bit less though. And we already have one here, so this area becomes quite a lot brighter. So maybe I just want to take the brush and take the eraser here. Maybe bring the flow down quite a bit and just gently brush over this area so that it doesn't become that much brighter. And I would say that's pretty much done. So there you have the before and there you have the after. That's a big change. That bright spot in the sky looks a bit unnatural though. Well, no, it doesn't have to be. That's the point. This could actually very well happen in real life as well. That's the whole point. The delay on the stream is a lot better as well. Yeah, I changed the delay so that we don't have any issues with the what was it, the YouTube stream. But no, see, I've actually seen stuff like this in real life where you have a storm cloud coming over your head. And that's actually what was happening right now as well. I just really made it a lot darker so you can really see it. But it's kind of like where you have this storm front that is kind of like arched and it comes over you. And as soon as you stand underneath the main storm, they call it the mouth of the storm. Sometimes it's called a whale's mouth or something like that. It's actually a kind of cloud that happens with storms. And when it will pass right over you, you could see something like that. So you still see a little bit of the sky where the storm is not yet, where it has not yet arrived. And then you see the really dark part, and that's the underside of the storm that has just come across your head. That can actually happen in real life. Now, I kind of like faked it a little bit here on this shot, because I think it makes this shot better. Like, there isn't that much cloud detail in the sky. I mean, it is there, because all those clouds that you're seeing right now were already there. They were just really faint, and you could almost not see them. And we've just brought them out. That's pretty much what we've done. But yeah, I do agree, it's not the most realistic way of doing it, and it doesn't look the most realistic, but that's not the point. I mean, most of my shots don't really look that realistic to begin with, right? If we take a look at some of the other shots, or if you look at some of the shots on my Instagram, I mean, it should be pretty clear that I don't go for the most realistic representation of a place. I don't really care about the color much. Like, if I want to change the color, I'm going to change the color. If it makes the shot better, then that's what I'm going to do. If I can make this, like, I've done shots in the past where I completely replaced the sky. You know, that's even something else I did. When I went out on a day where the light was just really, where the sky was just really bad, and the sky just didn't look good. And I actually just, I have done photos in the past where I just simply took one of my other photos where the sky actually looks pretty good, and just took that sky and just, you know, manipulated the whole photo to have a new sky. Whatever, you know, if it can make the shot better, then I think that you should be able to do it. I'm not one of those guys that cares too much about stuff like that. Like there are photographers who would say, you know, like stuff like that is not done. You shouldn't be doing that, but I really don't care. Like, to me, the end result matters. That's pretty much all I think is important. And I mean, yes, I do agree. It doesn't look too realistic, but we can always go in here and let's see. We can always go in here and just back it down a bit. See? So we can maybe dial it down a bit more. Although I like it when it's actually pretty dark. Look pretty cool, actually. About there. I'll just leave it at that, actually. So I do want to add some more photos, but I don't really like this place. The photos are old as well, so I don't think they're the best shots ever. But this one, yeah, this one can work. I might post this on my Instagram. If you want to see any of my other photos, then join my Instagram, or follow my Instagram, I should say. It's @SinisterSuspect. It's my photography Instagram page. I also have a page for my music, which is @ARTFX DMB. But we're doing a photo editing live stream, so you're probably interested in the photography Instagram page. @SinisterSuspect. I've just reached 1,000 followers, which I'm very happy with. And yeah, it would be great if we can get that up to maybe 1,500 or 2,000 maybe even. I'm not sure if anything happened during the stream. Let me check, actually. I'm gonna ask you guys a question, though. What do you guys want? Do you guys want me to do something more of a place like this? Let's say we can do a religious place. I've got a few of those. Or we could do an industrial place, or maybe we could do a house. Just a regular house. Let me know what you want. Let me check what happened on my Instagram. I've got a bunch of new followers, actually. I've got a museum. Yeah, we've got some new stuff on my Instagram, some new followers. Not too much, though. But anyway, Julius says, I have the same background image. What do you mean you have the same background image? As what? Like, which background image? I don't see a background image. A house. Maybe that chapel shot from upside down. That's this one. Yeah, and this one I would actually leave the perspective. Well, the same wallpaper as yours. What do you mean? The stuff that's actually on my wall behind me. That's not a wallpaper. That's not wallpaper. It's actual, what is it called? I don't even know what that's called. It's white stuff that you spray on the wall and then you know, put something across it to get some texture in it, but it's not a wallpaper. And if you mean the wallpaper of my PC, then no, you don't have the same one, because that's one of my own photos. Dude! Yeah, what up? What up? A house, you guys say. I'll have to look. I'll have to see which house, though. I did a few houses. I'm not a big fan of doing houses. Unless they're really big mansions, then I do like it. Most of the houses that I did are a little bit more smaller houses, and there's one reason that I don't really like them, and I can talk a little bit about that first. Especially in the last few years, there have been a few abandoned houses in Belgium, that have been getting a little bit of a bad publicity. And the reason for that is that there were a few urban explorers which were not really that careful when it would come to investigating their locations before they would go there. Like when I go to a place, I put in a lot of investigation work before I go there. It's almost like being a detective, and I'm really not kidding. You really have to start using Google to its full potential, so you have to have a good understanding of how to use Google in a good way. So, you know, you can just type in abandoned house Belgium, and you're gonna find hundreds of photos, but none of those photos will actually lead you to the actual location. So you have to start to get clever, you know, you have to start searching for some pretty more different things, you know. You can actually use codes in the search engine of Google, so you can let Google search on specific websites or in specific time frames, specific languages. You can do a lot of stuff, and that way you could actually narrow down your search a lot. And the more details you find out about a place, the closer you can get towards the actual location. But you might also find out other things. And there was this one house in Belgium that was abandoned, or well, people thought it was abandoned. And a few urban explorers who did find out about the place, they went there. And they didn't really do any investigation other than just looking up the location. And they found the location, they went to the house, and they posted their photos online. And after they've done that, they received a bunch of emails from the family of the original owner of the house. And, well, what happened? The original owner had an accident, a car accident actually, and he ended up in the hospital. So he ended up in the hospital, and his house was left abandoned. Well, it was locked at first, but apparently somebody broke into the house. After that, the explorers came there and they saw that there was a way in. Maybe one of the explorers broke in, I'm not sure. I mean, there are actually some pretty dumb explorers out there that do a lot of stuff like that, that actually break open in or break into houses. I don't do that stuff. If there's no way to go in, I will not go in, and I will just, you know, I would just accept my loss, accept that I've traveled all the way there and I'm not able to get in, and I'll just go on to the next location. I'll usually have a list of places in the same area that I can go to, so that when something is not open, I can just go to a different spot. I'm not going to break in, I'm not going to do anything like that. Because then you're just, you know, you're starting to do something else, and that's actually going to make it a lot more dangerous. You could get really in trouble for stuff like that. And unless you don't do that, you're gonna be pretty alright. I mean, you can probably talk your way out of it if the police will get you at a place like that. Especially if you just have your camera gear, and, you know, you can probably talk your way out of it. But these people posted the photos online, and they got this email. They found out that the original owner had a car accident and was actually in the hospital. So he had actually gotten into a coma, and he had been in the hospital for about 2 months. And his family found out that the house was broken into. A lot of stuff had been completely smashed up, moved around, stuff was stolen. After that, the explorers went there, they posted the photos online, and they were really not careful with the location as well. Like, when I post my photos online, I try to at least not have any street signs in the photos, so that, you know, not everybody looking at the photo will see where it is. Like, I don't want to lead people with the wrong intentions to these places. Like, I do have respect for the location and for the original owners that the place has, probably. Now, these guys didn't. So they actually posted a few photos online in their photo series that actually showed the full address. There were some letters on the There were some letters inside the hallway of the house, and they actually photographed those letters, which included the actual full address of the place. And after that, a whole bunch of people went there. The place got completely destroyed in only a few months' time, and the original owner got out of his coma, and he found out. Imagine how that must have felt, that your house had been completely trashed up in only 3 months' time. I mean, that's just crazy. And that's the reason I don't like doing houses a lot. And the only houses that I do, I'm gonna be 100% sure that these have been abandoned for at least for at least 4 to 5 years. I mean, when I do a house, I want to see some decay. I want to see some stuff that you know, I want it to look like it's been abandoned for a long time. And when it doesn't look like that, I'm probably not going to do the house. So, but you know, that's the whole thing. The stuff like that has been going on, and that's actually why I've stopped doing a lot of abandoned houses, actually, because there's a lot. You can find abandoned houses very easily. Oh, you meant the thumbnail on the live stream. No, it's not my desktop wallpaper. Show before or afters. Well, what do you want to see? I've got some before and afters of the shots that are on my Instagram. I could show you that before we're gonna do one of the houses. So the shots that I posted on my Instagram, this is one of them. That's the after. This is after it has been edited. And this is before. So you can see, I'm not doing that much to the image. I'm mostly affecting the color. That's mostly what I'm doing. I'm not really doing too much to the actual shadow areas. I'm not bringing up too much detail in the shadows or in the highlights. I'm really just focusing on the color. That's pretty much most of where my edit style comes from. We could take a look at this one. You can see, same thing. A lot of desaturated colors except for the orange. And when you look at the before, you can see it's still pretty much the same thing. There's a lot of orange in here. And there's quite a few other colors in there as well, but they're really faint, so I just desaturate those. And a lot of my edit style, a lot of what it is, it's actually darkening certain areas of the photo. I usually try and darken as much of the photo I can. I like a really dark look on my photos. I think it really suits the locations, especially these abandoned places. I think it really suits those places, so I really want to get a dark look out of it. But you don't want to get an underexposed look. That's the point. You know, you can darken an image very easily. Just take the exposure slider down. But then it's gonna darken the entire image. And then it's just going to turn into an underexposed image. So that's not what I want. So I really selectively darken areas that I think should be darkened. And you can see that right here. So a lot in the corners gets just a lot darker. I posted this one yesterday on my Instagram. Same thing. You can see it's the exact same processing. But I don't use presets. I don't use presets for this. I really just go into each individual image. This is another one that I did. And again, you can see I'm really focusing on the colors mostly. And I do, in this one, I am brightening the center part a lot as well. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole process. So we did this one earlier in the stream, which I think looks pretty cool as well. So that's the before, that's the after. So you can really see I'm focusing on the contrast and on the color. That's pretty much what I put a lot of work in. So that's a little bit of before and afters. Now, abandoned houses. When you were traveling, did you go by car, train, etc., and did you do multiple locations at the same day? I always traveled by car. Train is pretty much not done. A lot of these places are very hard to reach by using the train. The train network in Belgium isn't as good as in the Netherlands. It's a pretty solid train network though, so you could still get around pretty easily. But, you know, a lot of these places, like, some of these places are very far away from a nearest train station, so to even get to a place like that, you would simply have to walk very long from the train station, so that's not possible, especially not when you have 20, 25, maybe 30 kilograms of camera gear on your back. Then that's not ideal. You're already going to be walking a lot when you're exploring, so if you also have to walk to the actual location first, that's probably not going to be fun. So I usually we would go by car. Now, I'm not really hanging around with the guy anymore that I used to go exploring with, so currently that's the reason I don't do much exploring outside of the Netherlands anymore. And pretty much all the exploring I do right now is inside my own city, so inside my own hometown. I used to do a lot of exploring though, but currently just not so much, just for that reason. I don't have a car myself, pretty much. That's it. I don't have a car myself, and my buddy, which I used to explore with, does have a car. So he would just drive around, and he also got a camera because of me. He wanted to do a lot of this as well, but he never really showed that he really wanted to do it. That was the main thing why we broke up. Similar as well for some other stuff that he did. He's not really in the best situation right now. I'm not gonna say too much, but I can say drugs. That's probably gonna explain pretty much most of it. And we tried to help him, but he didn't want to be helped. That's pretty much the short version of the story. So I kind of like broke up my ties with him, and that means I'm not able to go out exploring that much anymore. Maybe I'll run into some other explorers that are from the same area as me. I know a lot of explorers, but most of them are either from Belgium or other parts of the country, so it's not really easy to hook up with them. If they go out exploring in Belgium, they have to drive up north to Rotterdam first and then come back to Belgium, which makes no sense. It's not easy. So I just focus a bit more on Rotterdam itself right now and what's in my own area. Who knows what's gonna happen in the upcoming years. Camera and lenses. Two cameras right now. I'm moving from a Canon EOS 550D, which is a crop sensor camera. I'm moving from that camera to a Canon EOS 6D, which is a full frame camera. So I'm mostly using the 6D right now. I've got the Sigma 24-35 f2 art lens on the 6D most of the time. I also have a Canon 70-200 f4L, which is a tele lens, which is nice for if I stand on top of a rooftop and I need to have some more zoom. Then it's a nice lens, but I don't really use it that much, so I'm thinking of selling that lens so that I have a little bit of more budget to actually buy a different lens, which will hopefully be the Sigma 14-24mm f2.8, which is a ultra wide angle lens that will fit my 6D. On the 550D I also have an ultra wide, but that one is a crop sensor lens, so I don't use it on the 6D. It's the Sigma 8-16mm, and that's the lens that I used for most of my urban exploring shots in the past. So most of the shots from 2015 and 2016 are shot with the Sigma 8-16mm. I also have a Sigma 17-50mm f2.8 macro lens, which I don't use a lot, but it's a nice lens, and it only fits the 550D. It doesn't fit on the 6D, but it's a cool lens. It's nice to do some more detailed shots every now and then with that lens, but a lot of times I don't have it with me, just for the reason of I don't want to have even more stuff with me. I already have so much gear with me when I go out to explore. So you just gotta make decisions, and that lens usually stays at home. Right now when I go out, I mostly leave the 550D at home, and that means leaving the 8-16mm at home as well. So nowadays I usually take my Samyang 14mm, which is another ultra wide angle lens, but it fits the 6D. I'll usually take that in case I need a really wide angle. But that's pretty much all the lenses I have, I think, at least. Yeah, I do have another 50mm, which is like the really cheap Canon one, which I don't really use a lot. I've used it in the past a lot, but I mean, that lens has been dropped and I don't know what else has been done to it. It's a really cheap lens. It's like $100, so it doesn't really matter. And it's a really plasticky lens. It's a really small one as well, so I don't really use that one. I mean, the 24-35 is a big-ass lens. I mean, that's the lens that I use a lot, and it's a big-ass lens. I mean, this lens is, what is it? It weighs 1 kilogram. I mean, I can even show you. Like, that's the Sigma 24-35, and that lens is really big. It weighs a lot, and it's my go-to lens right now. This is the lens I use pretty much all the time, and it's a beast. This thing is really good. It's really sharp. I mean, it costs a lot as well. I mean, it's not a cheap lens. It's an expensive lens, but yeah, the images are so sharp compared to my older Sigma 8-16mm. The images were just a lot more fuzzy, especially in the corners of the image. And with this lens, I mean, it's not a wide angle, not as wide as the 8 to 16mm, but the sharpness is just so much better. So therefore, I really want to get the Sigma 14 to 24, which is the focal length is equivalent to the 8 to 16mm, because the 8 to 16mm is on a crop sensor camera. So if you convert that to a full frame camera, you would get something along 12 to 24mm. So the 14 to 24 will be a perfect lens to replace my old 8 to 16mm, which means that I'm gonna be selling that lens as well soon. So if anybody's interested in that lens, just let me know. I might sell it to you, actually. You gotta be in the Netherlands though. That's gonna be it's gonna be easier for me to send it out, or even for you to pick it up. But yeah, I really wanna get the 14 to 24, but that is like, I'm not sure. It's like 1,500 euros, which is, that's a lot of money. So we're gonna have to wait with that right now. I'm just gonna get the 24 to 105 first, because I have a shoot on a rooftop soon, on a lot of rooftops actually. I'm gonna need that lens. So that's that. Let's find a house. Let's find a abandoned house to edit some photos from. So I've got something right here. This is actually an entire abandoned town in Belgium. It's one of the most well-known abandoned locations. Like, if you look up abandoned house Belgium, I bet you that this village comes up first. I bet you that this village is probably the most visited abandoned location in entire Europe. And I'm not lying. Like, this place has been abandoned for a while. There's still a few people living in the village. There's a lot of graffiti here. Like, the images don't really look that interesting to me. You can see that the places are pretty much empty as well. There's nothing left. No furniture or anything like that. And it's just completely trashed up. Like, there's so much graffiti down there. There's actually some pretty cool graffiti here, though. As you can see, there's some really interesting things. So it is like a nice... It gives it a nice look, though. See, like, there's a lot of graffiti here. So it does look quite nice, but it's not the most interesting place. Let's see if I have some other ones. I do have this one, though. This is more like an abandoned mansion. So this is more like a bigger one. Although these images are very old, so I wasn't really paying too close attention to my perspective here. As you can see, everything looks crooked. And I don't think we would be able to get a lot out of this image. If we are gonna correct this perspective, we're gonna lose a lot of this image. So I don't think that it's that usable. But this is more like a mansion. Pretty big one though. Let's see which other ones I have. Oh, here we have some houses, some villas actually. So that's a pretty cool looking villa. It's a pretty interesting staircase actually. I mean, if I would have this in my own house, I would be that's a balling looking house, to be honest. You don't really see much of that in where I live. That would be nice. I don't think there's any furniture in this place though. Let's see. It's mostly just, yeah, it's mostly empty rooms. No real furniture left. But it does give some interesting views. It has a beautiful kitchen area. Holy shit. I mean, damn. I mean, if I would have had a kitchen like that, just look at that. That's just gorgeous. Just imagine having a house like this. Like, and this place has been abandoned for probably 10 to 15 years when I visited it. So, that image looks actually pretty cool. I like the woodwork in this one actually. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. We could turn this probably into some cool shots. But I mean, that kitchen is just really cool. And the perspective on this one is really nice. I might actually just edit this one. I really like the look of this photo. I really love that view outside. It's a really big kitchen as well. So let's see. I did shot this in bracketed exposures, so that's good. So we have the darkest exposure to get all that detail in the garden, so we can really see what is happening outside. And then we have the brightest exposure, which is let's see, how much are we doing here? I'm doing exposure of 3 photos, so the brightest one is this one, which gives us a good amount of detail in the foreground. But the white balance looks a little bit off, so I changed the settings here. Change the white balance, that looks a little bit better. And we still get plenty of detail. I'm looking at this though, it looks like I actually bracketed this with more exposures. Yeah, I'm doing 5. That's 5. So I'm doing another 5 here. No, that's 6. That's 5. And then we have these 5 are the next shot. Oh, there's actually what have I been doing here? So this should be 5 shots, then we get that. No, that's 6. Man. 5. Yeah, it doesn't look like these are the same shots though. I mean, the white balance is definitely different. 3600. Yeah, the white balance is different. So here I changed the white balance, which means that this is a full series. Finally, I'm actually going to use this, so let's merge this. Let's go and merge that into an HDR so that we can start editing this one. Yeah, I'm not really going to do anything here. I'm just going to leave everything, just check auto align so that it will adjust it in case there's any movement in between the photos. I don't use any deghosting right now. I could try that out. So that's going to recalculate the preview, which could take a little while. And what that is going to do is whenever there's some movement in between the different exposures. So I shot 5 photos for this shot, 5 different exposures. And if there's any movement, so let's say it's a really windy day and the trees outside are moving a lot, then those trees will be in a different position in every one of the photos, and you can use the deghosting to remove the movement of that. So then it will just look at all the parts that are moved, and it will just look at those areas, and it'll just usually just replace it with an area out of one of the single exposures to prevent any weird edges from happening. I don't see anything though. I've checked the ghost overlay, so that should show up as red colors on the image anywhere we have movement, and I don't see anything. So I'm gonna bring it up to medium, which is going to recalculate it again. Might take a little bit longer because it's basically just gonna look a little bit more at the image. And again, I don't see any movement. I don't see any red blobs on the image. So that tells me that it was probably a pretty wind-free day. So that's good. I'm just gonna switch back to none. And let's just click merge. So now it's gonna create the HDR shot. So just wait for that to appear. And it's probably gonna appear right here. Or not. Let's go into the library. Let's sort this by file name. So here we have the HDR. So that's the combined shot. So now we have a new raw file. First thing I'm going to do let's go into the lens corrections, let's correct that, and I'm gonna bring the vignetting back so that I do like the vignette. I usually don't take it out. Transform. Now, this image is already pretty damn straight. It's a little bit crooked on the side here. So I'm gonna try using the vertical mode. And that did a pretty good job actually. Now I can try use the full mode. I'm gonna check. Yeah, so if you look at the grid right now and look at that, look at the top of the right pillar that you see on the right part of the frame, you can see that the line of the grid actually goes along the top of that pillar. Pretty good actually. It's pretty straight right there. Then follow that line all the way to the left side of the image where the other pillar is, and you can see that that pillar is actually a little bit lower. So that means that we have a little bit of horizontal distortion as well in the perspective. So I can try using the full mode here. And now let's bring the grid up again. And it still looks a little bit off. Now I might not wanna... It might not really be an issue. Like, we could probably get away with this. You don't really see it. But I want to try though if we can make it a little bit better. So I would have to do something like this. Now it's more... Now they're at the same height. Yeah. So that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So, next up, we can start working on the basics, the basic tab. Highlights, I'm really gonna bring these highlights down, because I want to reveal all that detail in the windows there. I really like that, and that's what I want to use a lot. So, I'm gonna up the exposure quite a bit, because I really like that dark in the foreground here. I really want that to be almost completely black. I don't really think we need to bring out all the detail here. Like, you have the cabinets right here, but I don't really think that they are adding something to the image. So that can be pretty much completely black. Now white balance, might want to play around with that, see if I want to get a little bit more green in the image and move this a little bit to the magenta side so that the inside becomes a little bit less green. Shadows, I might want to raise those a little bit, but not too much, because then you can see we're actually going to reveal those cabinets as well. And I don't think that they add much to the image, so I'll just leave it at about that. Now the whites, I can decrease the whites, which will make the outside a little bit less bright. I still think it's too bright, so I think we are actually gonna drop the exposure here. Yeah, see, I'm really gonna drop down that exposure to get that. So now the highlights look good, but the foreground is too dark now. So now we can take the shadows and we can raise that up a little bit, like so. Let's take the blacks and let's raise those as well, just to about there. I can still see a little bit of the cabinet, but that's fine. Clarity. Do I want to add clarity here? Yeah, a little bit of clarity doesn't look too bad. I think that actually looks pretty good. So I'm gonna bring up the crop tool and I want to see if I want to crop the image a bit. So I think I want to crop out that door or that window frame on the left side, because I don't see the window frame on the right side, I should say. I don't see the window frame right here on the left side, so I don't think I want to see it on the right side as well. Yeah, that's better. Makes the image a little bit more symmetrical. Vibrance. I'm gonna bring the vibrance down a little bit. And before I'm gonna do anything else, I'm gonna remove that lens spot right there. You can see that little dark circle. You can see it better when you're zoomed out. That's a little bit of a spot of dust on my lens or on my sensor, I'm just gonna take the spot removal tool and just click on it, and I'll just remove it. And I can just move this around to get a better part of the image. I'm just looking around to see which would work. That looks about right. So just quickly looking if there's any other ones in this image. You'll mostly see them on this ceiling because the ceiling is pretty much a solid color. But it doesn't look like there's anything more than that. I think I'll go into the tone curve now. See, I like that faded look, but you can see now that that faded look, it also increases the shadows again. So now I want to go back into the basic tab, play around with these sliders a bit. Let's back the blacks down a bit so we can make it a bit darker again. And I'm mostly just looking at the main overall look of the image. I don't really mind if this becomes too bright right here at the front. Those cabinets, we can always darken them up later. Really just looking at the main exposure of the image, especially on the outside, because that's the most brightest part in this image. So that looks alright. Now we go into the HSL tab, and here we will again start affecting the colors. So now for this shot, the main color in this shot is green. There's no other way around it. The main color is green, and that's probably going to be the color that we want to use in this shot, that we want to leave pretty much vibrant, and I probably want to decrease all the other colors. So I'm going to start with the U sliders, and I'm going to see if I can change the look of the green a bit. So we can move it to a more yellow side, or to a more, well, really green side. I actually think on the yellow side it looks pretty cool. That doesn't really do much. That one doesn't do much either. Let's take the blue. I'm probably gonna take most of the blues out anyway, so it doesn't really matter what I do to that. Purple doesn't do much. Magenta doesn't do much either. So let's go into the saturation and let's see if we can actually get some interesting colors going here. So red isn't really much doing in this image, so I'm just gonna decrease that. Orange. There's actually very little orange in this image, so we can decrease that quite a bit as well. Yellows, there's actually a lot of yellow in whatever is outside, so I'm going to decrease them a little bit, but not as much as the other ones. And I'm going to try and, yeah, I'm just really going to look and see if I can increase those greens. So I'm making them pretty vibrant, maybe too vibrant even, but we can always tone it back down. Aqua, you can see, if I bring the aqua up, you can see that along the bottom here, we actually have a lot of aqua that is turned green now, because I changed the aqua to green a bit. But it's actually pretty green, you know? So, I can take the saturation down of that to hopefully get rid of a little bit of that green color. It's still quite there. I think if we take the blue down, yeah, it is affecting it, but we still have a little bit of that green here. Not too sure if I like that, and that would be hard to remove. This is not easy to remove, that green on the plants right here in the foreground of the right outside of the window. That's difficult to remove. And I think it's a result of the reflection of the floor, maybe. I'm not sure, actually. There's a really bright floor right here, and if I look right here, I can see an edge. I think it's actually the reflection in the window that is turning this part of the grass a different green color. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. So we'll have to deal with that. Now, Purple magenta is not doing much. I'm just going to decrease that. Same for the magenta here. Now green, I can go into the hue again, and let's try if I bring the green to the other side. Then we make these a lot more the same color. Now it becomes way too green. Let's back that down a bit. Let's go into the Luminance tab and let's decrease the yellows here. Not as much though, but a little bit. Just to make those highlights a little bit less harsh. I'm gonna try the same thing with the green. Just a bit. Orange. Yeah, I'm gonna decrease those as well. If I brighten the aqua here, it actually starts looking more a bit like there's dust on the window, which I think is nice, so just increase that a bit. I'm gonna increase the blues a bit, because that actually brings some more light in the ceiling, which is nice. Purple, it's not doing much. Magenta is not doing much. Cool. I'm not sure about the green. I'm not sure about the color of the green. I might want to change that, but I'm gonna leave it for now. And let's go and add a little bit of blue, or maybe a different color. I've been doing blue a lot. Somehow I like blue in the shadows, but sometimes a different color could also work. So purple, I think purple is the complementary color of green. I'm not sure. Could also be red. I should know this. I've actually been to art school, but it's been way too long since I've been in art school. So actually a bit of blue looks all right. Otherwise, we go to the red side. Quite like the red one as well. What do you guys think? Should I do red in the color, in the shadows, or blue? I think maybe with the blue it turns it too cool. Although a cool look is nice for these kind of images. These places look nice when they have a cool look. I guess we'll just leave it at this. Detail. Let's set a sharpening amount. So, just the edges, like so. And let's take the calibration and let's see what we can do here. So here we can, yeah, so this actually does a cool thing to the greens. I like what this does more than what the HSL slider did. The hue slider in the HSL. I like this a bit more. And I can then decrease the saturation of the green if I want to. But for an Instagram photo, I might want to leave quite a bit of saturation in it. Because Instagram is, you know, saturated images do simply better on Instagram. Even though my images look very desaturated, keeping that one vibrant color in usually helps to get more recognition on Instagram. Because a lot of people just seem to look at, is an image looking very vibrant in terms of color? Then usually it simply gets more likes. I don't know why, but that's just the nature of Instagram. Probably because people are seeing your photos on a really small screen. Not as big as on a computer screen. So really vibrant shots usually come across a little bit better than really dark shots or really desaturated shots. So I think that's the reason why a lot of these vibrant colors are, well, that often used on Instagram. I quite like it though. If you can pull it off well, then it can look really nice. Now I'm looking at this. This actually looks pretty cool as well. A more orangey look for the trees, although it looks a little bit unnatural, but it looks pretty interesting. Like, this is way too much. We could take this very far if you want. Like, we can go all the way up, which actually doesn't look too bad. We just have to decrease the saturation of the greens to make it look a bit more convincing. Actually, I like the tone of the greens now. The color though. The color is really nice. We also have this slider. Just a bit more to the right. So let's see if I want to change the contrast or any of this. Maybe add a little bit more clarity. Maybe drop those blacks down a little bit and bring a little bit of the whites back. Yeah, I think that looks pretty alright. Now we can go back into our local adjustments. So using the radial filter, the brushes, stuff like that. I want to focus on the main vignette first. So I'm going to make a big circle. Invert the mask. And I'm going to bring that down. And you can really see that this really brings your attention towards the center of the frame. I'm going to bring the feather back so that we don't get such a big transition. And I'm actually going to move this vignette down. So I'm going to move this vignette off center. Well, it's centered horizontally, but it's not centered vertically. So it's actually adding more darkness here at the top because we already have a really dark bottom. So we don't, everything at the bottom is already really dark. So we don't really have to do much darkening there. And I really want to kind of like create what looks almost like a spotlight here on the ceiling, which could happen in real life, but I don't think it's. Yeah, I'm just gonna make that quite dark actually, and I want to try and bring a little bit more light back out of the windows though, because those are also being darkened. We could do that with maybe the highlight slider. Just bring that up a little bit, and it will reveal a bit more of those highlights there. I don't want too much of it though, just a little bit. I think I'm actually gonna increase the size of this radial filter a bit. Let me make that a bit bigger and move this down. So yeah, I like what that does. Now, it also darkens some other parts of the image. So I have now, let's do plus half a stop on the exposure. And let's put some more light in the center of the image, because that's where I want your attention to be. So I'm gonna put it right around here, just on that door frame. And I'm gonna bring the highlights down a bit, but the exposure is going up. So it's increasing the exposure on the middle, how do you say that? You know, you have the brightest parts and the shadow parts, and everything in between is like the middle luminance, whatever you want to call it. It's brightening up that, but because we're decreasing the highlights again, it's then making the windows, because the windows are the highlights. Like if I bring that up, you can see that the windows are the highlights. And I'm just bringing that back so that they don't get brightened too much. And I'm only really brightening the inside of the building. Now, I think I want to put a little bit of light here as well. On that sink. Just a bit. And maybe back down the exposure a little bit as well. And again, for this shot, I should have removed this this door. I should have just picked it up and moved it aside. Then the image would have been completely symmetrical, except for what's happening outside of the windows. But then this shot would have been a lot more symmetrical than what it is right now. I think that I can remove it in Photoshop though. We have a good clean section here, so we could just simply copy that. Flip it around and try and paste it on this section, and hopefully I can get rid of that door, because I really think it will make this shot better. I just think it doesn't add too much that that thing is lying there, and without it, I think the shot would have been much better. The only thing we'll have to see if you have a little bit of a reflection of these door posts. I'm not sure it's also there, so maybe we can make that work. But it will be difficult though, but we can always try. So what do I want to do more? Let's see, I'm gonna go and add another vignette, but now I'm gonna use the actual vignette here, because I want to add another vignette, but this one is not going to be round. This one is going to be a little bit more like a rounded rectangle. So that's just going to brighten up the corners. And it's also going to brighten up a bit more here in the corner, a bit more here, and a bit more here at the bottom. Now I also want to darken up that bottom a bit more. So I'm just going to take a graduated filter and just put it right across there, so that that becomes pretty much black. There's a little bit of detail there, but it's very faint. Now, I think this is actually turning into a pretty good image. This is an abandoned house. Yeah, it is an abandoned house. It's a rather large abandoned house though. This is actually this was in a street where this is one big street just across the border in Belgium. We had just gone over the border into Belgium, and this is one of the first cities that you pass through after you've went over the border from the Netherlands to Belgium. It kind of depends where you cross the border, of course, but where we crossed it, this is pretty much the first village that you reach, and there's this one really long street, and it's nothing but big mansions in that street, just big mansions, and pretty much all of them have Dutch number plates on the cars in front of the houses. The reason for that is that a lot of the richer Dutch people, like a lot of rich Dutch people, actually move to Belgium right across the border, because they have to pay a lot less tax in Belgium as opposed to the Netherlands. So they simply move right across the border and buy a really big house there, because the houses are cheaper there as well, and the tax is just much lower. So they can actually evade some tax by moving to Belgium. And I mean, if you have a car and if you work in, I don't know, Rotterdam or something like that, or one of the more southern cities in the Netherlands, then it's perfectly doable. You'll be at your work in like no time if you have a car. So yeah, I mean, this house is this is not your typical abandoned house though. Not at all. I mean, your typical abandoned house would be a lot more trashed up probably, and it would probably not look as beautiful as this one. This is a really beautiful place. I don't know. I think they sold this house a few months after I visited it. I'm actually gonna add a little bit more light here, and I'm gonna remove it from the window. So I'm gonna take the eraser. I'm just gonna, flow is at about 50%, so I'm just gonna brush a bit here at the bottom. So I'm not gonna get that effect on the trees in the windows. Just a little bit of brightness on the ceiling. But yeah, this place is like this is not your typical abandoned house. Most of the abandoned houses that I went to were really trashed up and small houses and stuff like that. I've been to some farms and stuff like that, which most of the time are pretty trashed up as well. Usually there's a lot of graffiti in those kind of places, because abandoned houses are the easiest to find. If you want to shoot photos like this, try and find some abandoned houses in your area. That's probably your easiest thing to do. Just look around, just ride your bike through your city and just pay close attention to your surroundings, and you'll probably find an abandoned house somewhere. But other places like these big industrial sites are usually a bit harder to find, especially if you want to actually get in there. It's usually a bit harder to find out a way to get in. A lot of these houses, it's mostly just a matter of walking into the backyard and just trying the back door. I mean, most of the time the front door will be locked, but if you just walk up to the back door, it'll probably just open up. So, one thing that's bugging me in this image now is that the edge of this cabinet right here is not straight. So, I think I'm actually gonna do this. I'm gonna reset the horizontal perspective, and I'm gonna click on full, which is going to... Is that bottom edge straight? Actually, no. I'm just gonna try and make that straight, because I think that this bottom line should be straight as opposed to the top of those pillars. The top of those pillars, it doesn't really matter because you don't really see them anyway. So I'm gonna adjust this a little bit so that we don't get the door frames on both the left and the right side. Yeah, that looks better. Now the bottom right here actually looks straight. And nobody's gonna put a ruler along this top edge and then see if that top edge aligns. Nobody's gonna do that. So I think this is gonna be a better thing to do. Otherwise the bottom just looks crooked. I think this thing just is not placed centered in the room. Maybe it's just slightly angled. Maybe somebody moved it a little bit. I'm not sure if this actually anchored into the ground, but maybe somebody moved it a bit. Now, I want to try removing that door. I want to try and see if we can do that today. It's, yeah, we have about half an hour in this stream left. So I think that will be a good moment to try and remove that door. Shouldn't be too hard, I think. Let's try and open up this photo in Photoshop. Yeah, open anyway. So let's see what that's gonna do. Let's see if we can actually remove it. So let's just wait for that to open up. If there's any questions about the editing style or anything I'm doing, if you want to know anything about the thought process behind what I do, then let me know in the chat and I'll answer your question. So here we have the shot in Photoshop. And I think removing this would actually not be that difficult. Looking at the image, it looks like Photoshop added a little bit of color bending here. Strange. Not sure why that is happening. That doesn't help. So I'm actually gonna hit no. And let's do this again. Edit in Adobe Photoshop. And let's do a render using Lightroom. So now Lightroom should be the one that is doing this. And let's see if it makes it any better. No, we still have the little bit of bending here. Maybe it's just because we're working in Photoshop, or maybe it's just because we're not looking at the full image. If I zoom into 100%, we get a little bit of it, but it's not as noticeable at 100%. Yeah, I think it's just because we're working in Photoshop. We'll see what happens. So I want to remove this part, pretty much. That's pretty much what I want to remove. So first thing we could try is using the content aware. Now I don't think that this will work because it's a rather large area that we want to remove, but we can try. So let's try it out. Content aware, and it's gonna think. And like I expected, it didn't do a perfect job, but it's not too bad either. It didn't do a completely horrible job. It kind of like tried to extend that line. It wasn't able to do it all the way, so it's a little bit off, but and it fucked up a little bit right here on the on that edge. It kind of screwed up a bit there. So let's undo that. Let's go back. So instead, I'm gonna try and use this part that's right here. So I'm just gonna copy this section. So that's the entire part that I'm gonna take. My feather here at the top in Photoshop, I'm not sure if you can see that. No, you cannot see that. Let me do that. So right here at the top, you have feather. That is actually the feather amount of your selection. So I've set that to 5 pixels. What that means is that this selection, the edge of this selection, is not going to be perfectly like, it's not going to be a hard edge. It's just going to be an edge of 5 pixels. So it has a little bit of a transition in between what I'm going to cut out and where I'm going to place it on top of. So that helps to blend it in a little bit with the background. So let's copy this. And let's... It didn't copy it for some reason. Let's just do that. Copy. And let's paste that in place. So now I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to say Transform, and I'm going to flip this horizontally. And now I'm going to move this to here. So I'm looking at that line. And that looks about right. I'm gonna zoom in a bit here. So that already did a pretty good job. I mean, this is much better than what we had before. I'm going to do a Control as T so that I can do a transform. And I'm gonna try and just make that a little better. So I'm looking at that line, and that line pretty much goes in a straight line. So that's good. Now, I want to go and let's add a adjustment layer, and I'm gonna do... Let's just do a brightness... No, let's use the curves one. New adjustment layer, let's do the curves. And I'm gonna create a clipping mask, so this adjustment layer is only affecting the part that we cut out and that we placed on top of here. And I'm gonna go and try and darken it up just a little bit. See, so now we actually, you cannot really see the edge anymore. So if I see right here, you can see that edge. That's just because this part of that image is just a little bright. This part is just darker. If I zoom out, see, this right here is just brighter than this side. That side, if I turn this off, you can see it's darker. So we should try and bring that back. So first step is adding the curves layer. That kind of like does it already. Makes it a bit darker. Now you can still see that we have that edge right here at the top. So I'm gonna create a layer mask on top of the part that we cut out. And I'm gonna take a brush. Let's take a brush, just a regular soft brush, soft round, should be good. I'm gonna take black, and I'm gonna start painting in certain areas. So I first want to try to make this edge a little bit less hard. So I'm just gonna go along that edge a bit. Just to remove that edge that we have there. I'm gonna do the same thing here. Let's move my opacity up to 100. And just gonna remove that edge right there. So that looks a little bit better already. Now, if we compare it, I can see that we have a lot here that I can get rid of. So, and now you can see we start to see the actual door itself. So now I'm going too far. Let's go back to white, and let's just paint a little bit white here, a little bit of white there, and that looks pretty cool. Like, I don't mind that little texture right there. That looks pretty alright. I could maybe darken that a bit, so I could go in and put a layer on top here. I don't want a clipping mask, so let's release the clipping mask, and let's just take another brush with a little bit of black. I'm gonna increase the size, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of black here, and let's bring that opacity down just to see what that does. Let's take a bit of the eraser and let's raise the size of that. Let's bring the opacity of the eraser down so that we can make this a little bit less. I mean, I think we did a pretty good job at removing that thing. I think the little bit of detail there looks pretty alright. Actually, it looks better if we don't darken it. It looks better actually. So I mean, before it looked like that, and now it looks like this. I think that's pretty good. So bring a little bit back maybe, and then I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, so now I can go out of this image. I'm gonna save it. I'm not gonna add any image compression. I don't want to do that, simply because I don't want to you know, I don't want to apply compression right now. I want to apply compression when I create a JPEG file out of this image and not when I do my individual edits. So always pay attention to doing that. If you apply compression, it'll actually decrease the image quality. So you don't want to do that at this stage. I'm just going to click OK. Including layers will increase file size. Okay, so I'm going to click right here, discard layers and save a copy. Hit OK. I'm just gonna say yes. So that's the image. I'm just gonna say yes, save. Didn't we already do that? Well, anyway, faster saves bigger files. That's what we want. We want to get as least amount of image quality reduction as possible. So I just want to have non-image compression. That looks right. Somehow you cannot save it without layers. Well, we'll just save it with layers. I don't really care. I have a good computer, so should be easy to handle that. Yeah, so now here we have the new shot. So it looks pretty alright. I can still see an edge here though. Fuck. Should have paid a little bit more attention to that area. But it's easy to fix. It's very easy to fix actually. We're just gonna make the bottom of that image darker, so that you don't see it anymore. Solved. So yeah, that's another image done. I think this one looks really nice. I think this is actually going to be one of the first shots that I'm going to post on my Instagram in the upcoming days. I think this one looks pretty cool. So, anybody of you who are now watching, if you want to see more of my photos, go to Instagram right now and follow @SinisterSuspect. That's my photography page. I normally work on this YouTube channel. I usually do music production as ARTFX, which is my artist name as a musician. But I do love to shoot photos as well, and I do that under a different name, and that is Sinister Suspect. I'm also working on a website which is going to be online hopefully pretty soon, which is going to showcase a lot more of my photographs, and is also going to include a little bit more of a backstory about the photographs, so how they got, so how I made them, how the whole experience of visiting the place was. There's going to be a lot of that on my website, so if you want to be part of that, check out my Instagram, join there, follow me there, that would mean a lot. I'm trying to bring my amount of followers up on my Instagram. I'm trying to grow. I've been growing quite fast actually for the last few days. Reached 1K followers, which was really cool. So if you want to follow that, that would mean a lot to me, and I want to thank you guys if you do that. So, are there any questions about what I did, about photo editing? Is there anything you want to know? Maybe you want to know something about the shots that I did, or something you've seen a shot that you are wondering about. Ask your questions right now in the chat, and I'll answer them. So I'm gonna switch back to this, and let me switch back to the full screen mode. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really liking how these images are turning out, actually. This image looks pretty cool. Can you link me a video? Yes, you can link me a video, but I'm not going to click it right now. I'll probably look at it after the stream. So, I don't know what it is, so... Holy shit, it's Destiny. Well, whatever. I'm not sure what that link even is. Maybe somebody can click on it and tell me what it is. Or I'm just gonna click it right now and just gonna press pause.
No, it's not.
Well, whatever. I'm not sure why you're sending me that. But yeah, any questions about what I did this day, what I did in this stream? Let me know. Next week we'll probably go and do some more edits. Let me give this one a flag. Next week we're probably gonna do some more edits. I've got so many places that I still haven't showed you guys. I've got so many places. Some pretty crazy places as well. Like, I mean, that's a pretty sick place. See? We've got some really really big places. That's a huge building, by the way. So we've got some really interesting photos that we could edit next week. There's some interesting ones here. Let's see. This one is pretty cool. Like that would be a pretty cool shot to edit next week, maybe? Maybe we can do one more. We still have a little bit of time left before I have to go to sleep, but or well, before everybody else is gonna go to sleep here. I'm not gonna go to sleep soon. Got some more houses. You can see this house is a lot more trashed up. See, this is a more like a traditional house. It's still a big house though, but it's very trashed up. That's more what you'll usually see when you go into an abandoned house. Then you'll usually find something like this, which is a shame. But I mean, considering the house, it's still a pretty big house. This location is actually pretty awesome as well. Like, this is also really trashed up, but I love the gritty look of this. Like, this just looks really nice. It's an old military fort, actually. There's a lot of graffiti over here, so it's not really, it's a really well-known place. This is not one of the more unknown places, but it still looks very nice. Like, I love that dirt everywhere. That's just cool, and it can really make the shots look nice. I mean, just look at the outside of the building. That's what it looks like. Just look at all the trees growing through the building. That's really cool. Just look at that. Like, there's trees growing out of the roof. There's actually trees on the top floor, I think. Let's see. Yeah. There's actually a tree growing. This is on the top floor. So there's actually a tree growing on the top floor, and it literally just grew through the roof, which is pretty crazy. So I've got so many of those kind of places. There's a lot of this stuff. Some hotels. There's actually an abandoned hotel. Pretty trashed up though. It's not really and a dick on the wall. On the window, which we'll have to remove if we want to use this shot. But inside it just looks completely trashed. Like, I hate it when places look like that. I like decay. You know, I like when something looks destroyed, or when it looks like it's falling apart, but not when it looks like it's been smashed up by somebody. You know, and that's what this looks like. This is not natural decay. This is not what a building looks like if you leave it abandoned for 20 to 30 years. This is what it looks like when people enter a place just to smash things up. That's how it turns into this. Natural decay would be probably something more like this. See, that's more natural decay, where all the paint is falling off the ceiling. These things are just starting to drop off the wall. You see the wallpaper is just letting loose. That's natural decay, and that's stuff that I like. That makes the images look very cool, but not when people smash things up for no reason. So I'm looking to see what else we have, what we could do next week. We've got quite a few things that we could do. I've got an abandoned campsite in the French Alps. So we actually got some mountain backdrops in this one, which is pretty cool. So I don't see any questions coming in, guys. So I'm thinking I'm gonna stop streaming. We've done a few photos today, and those will probably end up on my Instagram in the coming week. And next week, we're gonna do some more. So, I hope you enjoyed what we did today. I hope you enjoyed these shots. I quite enjoyed it, actually. I think the shots of today turned out pretty good. So, we'll be able to use those. And I'm gonna post those on Instagram. Yeah, if you want to join my Discord server, there's a link in the description below the stream, and if you're on Twitch, just scroll down, there's a button there, you can click it, and it'll add you to my Discord server. My Discord server is mostly for music producers, because that's what I do normally, but we also have a dedicated section for photography, so if you want to join in, if you're a photographer, if you want to join in, just hang out with us, and show some of your work, feel free to join, feel free to be part of the Discord server, and come hang out with us. It would be great. Next week, I'm going to be streaming on Friday. I'm going to be streaming again Friday evening, 8 PM Central European Time. We're actually going to work on some music again on Friday. So hopefully I'll have finished the Neurofunk tune that I was working on last Friday. If not, we'll try and finish that tune on the next stream on Friday. Then I think on Sunday, next week, Sunday, we'll do another photo editing stream. Maybe I'll do another photo editing stream in the coming week if I have some time. I'm not sure yet. I've got a pretty busy schedule. I've got my regular job. I've got my my YouTube channel, which I have to do some videos for. I'm working on a lot of new music, so I might not have time to do another photo editing stream in between today and the next stream on Friday. But who knows, I'll keep you guys posted on my Twitter, so if you want to stay up to date with my live streams, just follow me on Twitter. I'll usually post an update there. And also follow me on Instagram. It would mean a lot if all you guys can follow. I'm not seeing any new followers come in, but it would, like I said, it would really mean a lot. If you like the photos that you're seeing, just follow me on Instagram. That's where I post all these photos. You can also follow me on Flickr, which is another photo hosting website. There you can actually see the photos in higher detail. Instagram kind of ruins the quality of your photos when you post them. It shrinks them down to I think it's 1080 pixels that it shrinks them down to, which is quite small. For a phone screen that's alright, but for viewing on a computer screen, that's pretty small. So if you want to see the full resolution images, you can actually go to Flickr, which is a much more photography aimed photo sharing site. It's really a place where a lot of photographers go to talk to each other and to share their shots with each other. And that's where you can actually go in and really pixel peep on the images. I think the biggest sizes images that you guys can see on Flickr from my account are 2048 pixels wide. So that's a little bit bigger. That's almost twice what Instagram would give you for size. So you can actually see it much bigger and actually get a good view. Maybe it's 1600 pixels, I'm not sure, but at least it's bigger than on Instagram. So it'll give you a bit better view on the images and a bit more of a high quality look. Now, that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say. I hope you enjoyed it. By the looks of it, I think you guys did. Chris, as usual. Chris is always here. Chris is always looking. Chris has nothing to do in his life, I guess. Nah, I'm joking, Chris. Chris is one of the moderators, so he knows who was saying it. So, Chris, and now everybody else, I'm glad you were here. I'm gonna see you guys next Friday on another live stream. Maybe there's gonna be another video this week. I'm not sure. I really should get around and do some more tutorial videos about music production. I've been slacking a bit, I know. So yeah, that's it, and I hope to see you guys back soon. Yeah. Peace.